across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. I mean, as Ian Collins said, I hope everyone's standing to attention. Of course, another quiet week while I was away last week. Not much going on. Just a small invasion of Europe. Not mainland Europe, everyone was saying about Ceuta. Not mainland Europe. Yeah, well, it is kind of Spanish territory that's like basically considered Spain. It pretty much is. And if you think that's all gone away, you've really got to stop believing mainstream media, because it really, really hasn't. And we'll be talking about that. Implications, of course, in relation to the 2,000 Channel boat migrants who've arrived in our shores since Andy Burnham took over. But don't worry, everybody. Andy Burnham's put on a suit yesterday. Well done, Andy. And he's put on a suit and he went to Dover and he looked very interested in what everyone was explaining to him about how they were tackling Channel boats. And he said they're going to be relentless. They're going to be relentless, that's the key word, relentless in how they deal with the Channel boats. So that's all sorted now. So do stop worrying about the whole issue of illegal migrants arriving in the country. Nothing to see here, all sorted. Or is it? Well, we will find out. So I want to hear your thoughts on all of that. Don't forget, of course, if you're watching us on DAB+, listening to us on DAB+, watching us on YouTube, great to have your company. I'm with you all the way until 1. If you do miss anything from the show, go to my YouTube page, Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never miss a thing. We're also going to be talking about whether or not Nigel Farage should strike a deal with Restore Britain. After vowing to build a broad coalition that unites the right, he made a statement on social media after an offer from Restore's leader Rupert Lowe for a pact. But what was behind his urge for a pact, and the 5 conditions, crucially, including that basically Nigel Farage should have to drop a load of his Tory defectors. Doesn't look like that is going to be on the cards. We're going to be talking about Labour's disastrous workers' rights reforms, which the Tories say Andy Burnham needs to ditch, or he risks sending Britain back to the 1970s. I think in a few years' time, folks, we're going to dream of the 1970s. And we are also going to be talking a little bit later about FIFA as well, and plenty more besides. Oh, yes, and that glorious story about that Cambridge professor. Not quite sure how he became a Cambridge professor, Jason Arday, and his latest gloriously absurd claim about things that he has done, including appearing on the BBC show 7 Up, which actually began before he was born. But there we are. It's almost like almost nothing he says can be verified. Interesting. Anyway, we'll talk about all of that, plenty more besides. Particular question I want to ask you today, but as you know, usual rules, you get to decide what you call in on. I would like to hear from him about this offer from Rupert Lowe, from the Restore Britain leader, to offer to form a pact to unite that he calls the patriotic right. Should Nigel Farage agree to a pact? Tell us why he should. Tell us why he shouldn't. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged the national rate and text cost 1 standard network rate message. Delighted to say joining me today, as ever on a Monday, Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning to you.
Morning.
If you're watching on the YouTube or you connect to us, we are the White Girls today.
It's sunny.
It is sunny. It's like the most comfortable way of walking to the tube in the morning. It's like, deflect the sun. We've got a heat wave. Apparently there is some rain coming. Not where I live, and don't think where you live. We're both in the south.
Yeah, so we've still got the burnt grass and all the dust.
I've got to be honest with you, we spent a long time trying to sort out our lawn over the years, and I have to say, I was away last week, as my husband out every night. I need watering cans full of water on that lawn. I'm not losing that lawn to this solid drought. But of course, we're all going to die because of the drought. There's going to be no food. It's driving all the migrants, of course, because of the drought. Apparently, all of that. I mean, it's just all a load of nonsense. We'll talk to Ross Clark about all of that coming up. Can we just talk? I mean, let's just talk first of all about Andy Burnham and his trip down to the Dover yesterday. Although it is the case that Channel boat migrant arrivals has gone down, and again, I don't think we're cheering when they go down to the equivalent of 20,000 a year, as opposed to 40,000 a year. I mean, oh, well done. What a complete and utter success. We all know also that actually you can't predict the movement of these people. I imagine an awful lot of people decided to stay in Spain, where they could basically stay and get under the Sanchez, all linked to Ceuta, of course. get to stay and get basically legalised to be able to work legally and all of that and stay legally. So I wonder if that's had more of an impact. The weather usually makes a difference rather than any particular policy the British government or indeed the French policy seems to have. But 2,000 crossing just the last 2 weeks. We've got some of these. We talk about small boats. They're not small boats anymore. We're talking about dinghies that, like, as long as a double-decker bus can carry 160 people on them. For goodness' sake, fares please. We've seen more deaths. Again, you're not a desperate person getting in a boat in France, so I'm sorry. If you want to take that stupid risk, then I'm sorry. That's not really my problem. That's my motto now. It's not my problem. But Andy Burnham's saying he's going to be relentless. He put on a suit and a tie, and he said he's going to be relentless in dealing with this issue. So as far as I'm concerned, Claire, this is no longer a political story, and the job is done. Is that right?
Well, he'd like to think it, wouldn't he? I mean, he's big on the vibe. So he went to Dover in a shirt and tie. So he would have stood out on the White Cliffs wearing that outfit.
He looks very uncomfortable.
He did.
Here am I nagging, going, for goodness sake, man, put a suit on, your Prime Minister. And when you put a suit on, you go, oh.
But there's a time and a place. And I think when you're sort of looking at border force vessels and being at
that would have been a day when you didn't have to.
Exactly.
It's a side issue. It's a side issue.
It is a side issue, but it's things like that matter. I mean, he's going to be relentless at doing what?
I know, that's the bit I couldn't say.
Relentlessly.
They're going to curb the number of people arriving in the UK on small boats. They're changing the whole approach. People want to see this issue established, he said. We also need to build a system that offers safe routes for people as well, because, of course, all these young men would be prioritised for the safe routes, because that also takes away the selling point of the gangs, he says. But he says the key thing is he's going to change the whole approach. Is there anything he's promised to do that doesn't involve changing the whole approach?
But he hasn't said anything. That's the problem. He's put some words together in a sentence that don't actually mean anything. They sound very nice as a soundbite. They can go out on the media pool, and nobody questioned him. And it's been allowed to stand. So we're all sitting here going, well, what does this actually mean? By which point he's in number 10 North and is far away from the problem.
And his first Secretary of State, Louise Haig, apparently, has been in podcasts saying that they've been planning all this for a year. He doesn't have a plan for anything. No. Doesn't have a plan for social care reform. Everything. When people tell me, look what he's achieved. What has he achieved? In October, I'm going to get, what would we work out? Was it 89p off my electricity bill when it's going to go up by at least twice that anyway? I don't really get buses. I'm in favour of the bus cut, but I'm not sure that this is going to be life-changing for people. No. But basically, reform at 11 o'clock. We'll take some of that live. I've got a press conference. It's Sia Youssef, who handles the side of things, and Nigel Farage. And they're going to be announcing in more detail their policy to use Royal Navy to return boats to France. Now, this is something that Boris Johnson did talk about doing, didn't he? This was definitely something he talked about doing. Didn't actually do it. They're going to have a load of senior former naval figures actually at this press conference, we're told. I have to say, I mean, look, I remember having rows with various folk over the years about pushing back boats. You can't be pushing back dinghies safely. That's not. But taking people, you're in the middle of the channel, fine. We'll pick you up. Here's a bottle of water. Here's a sarnie, and now we're taking you straight back to the beach you've just come from. I mean, the only thing that would go wrong is the French aren't going to agree to it. Of course, they're not. No. But if the French don't agree to it, as a point that's been made, are they realistically going to start firing on the Royal Navy? Are they going to be punishing us with some sort of embargo? What are they going to be doing?
But there are so many problems with this plan, and it has been tried before.
But it hasn't. No one's ever done it.
Priti Patel stationed the Royal Navy out of the channel.
No, but they didn't actually do it. They never took anyone back.
No, they didn't. But
it's not been tried before.
Well, putting people out in the channel, she did do that, and it failed abysmally. It didn't work. Nobody could pick up the migrants out of the boats purely because the vessels that we have are not low enough. And it comes down to some really basic stuff.
Buy some more boats.
OK. I would love.
Wait a minute, no, wait a second. Are you saying you can get them out of the boats, out of the dinghies, but you can't get them back on the dinghies?
No, you can't get them. You can't scoop them up out of the water onto the back of those vessels that the Royal Navy have.
OK, you can do it on a passenger ferry. I mean,
you may as well get a P&O ferry. It'd be a lot easier.
Fine. Well, let's do that.
But that's not the Royal Navy. So I think that there are so many
the Royal Navy surely can basically say this is now a Royal Navy vessel.
take over.
Frankly, we've probably got more P&O ferries than we've got frigates. So, you know.
Yeah, we have. I mean
Nigel Farage is talking about this is the biggest, maritime, action. It can't be because we haven't got any ships.
No, we don't.
Which is an issue.
And that is the other problem. We couldn't get one over to Cyprus.
I would say that policing our actual immediate border would be a #1 priority, and getting these people, not allowing these people who are, many of them are foreign criminals, they're already convicted, we know some of them are terrorists. We know that. The security forces have said that. I would say absolutely a top priority for our security. So I'm more than happy for our ships to be diverted to do this.
I wouldn't mind if we had the capacity to do it, but we don't. And putting out a policy like
then
this...
let's buy it.
Absolutely. You know that I'm all in favour of increased
defence training for the Navy.
But the thing is, we don't have that now. So what is reform going to do? Are they going to increase defence spending by the amount that we would need? They'd need to do that very quickly to get those vessels in place. There are so many practicalities, let alone the fact of returning people into a country that they haven't agreed to take them back. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, it doesn't matter, just sort of chuck them near the coast and make them swim back a little bit. That's fine. What are we going to do if the French start to pick people up in the middle of the water and put them in the same position on the beaches of Dover? We would go absolutely spare if the French started.
Well, that's because they didn't start at our shores.
No, I know.
Under maritime law, apparently this is all legal under maritime law. I'm sorry, I'm a bit fed up with the French playing, oh, what can we do, what can we do, or you go to the water. Apparently, what we're paying the Son of God on the front page, they're billing us £8,000 for every migrant they stop, and that's the actual cost of these multi-£100,000 payments, not £100,000, £100 million payments we pay them. And actually, in terms of the number they stop, it costs us £8,000 time. I mean, gee, thanks.
I think that we could probably get a bunch of people from this country to do it for a hell of a lot cheaper and be a lot more successful than the French
and also very interesting, actually, that we are in a situation where this now cut price. There was a time when it was £5,000 to get across. Then it became £3,000, £2,000. It's now in the hundreds. It's in the low hundreds to get across. I mean, by the way, that's a free market for you, folks. That's what capitalism and the free market brings. But there is the demand and there is the supply, and the reason there's demand is because, of course, you get a free house. That's what they do. 1,500, by the way, foreign criminals living in UK asylum homes right now, and we're paying for them.
Yeah, there are lots of things wrong. And there are a lot of things that could be done. I mean, detaining people when they get here should be the first port of call that people should be looking at.
In not very pleasant conditions. But then the human rights lawyers will get upset.
But I think you need to go after these things, because it isn't going to make any difference. Whatever we pay the French isn't going to make any difference. And whatever has been done in the past hasn't worked. But again,
it's like people say that Rwanda doesn't work. No one, if you don't actually ever follow through a policy, we know that picking people up and taking them somewhere else works. Australia's done it, other countries have done it, it works. So why don't we just do it? I don't care whether the French agree. With all due respect, if the French were our friends, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place, would we?
No, but they've already shown
they're
for
not.
Some time, have they? I mean, a little bit of history between our two countries. But I think also just the sheer fact that you cannot go and sail a warship into their waters without that looking like it's an
Russia doesn't seem to have a problem with going into ours, does it? But there we are.
It doesn't have a problem
what do you make in terms of the Ceuta invasion? I mean, it was an invasion.
Yeah.
I was away, but I was very aware. I'm sitting on a beach in Cyprus going, whoa, what if that was happening, right here? You had hordes of largely young men running down, over the beaches. I mean, it was fascinating. 60,000 arriving in a little area, little enclave with a population of 80,000. Fascinating that the locals basically shut themselves in their homes, closed their shops. We ain't selling you any water, ain't selling you any food. And then the Spanish brought the army in and got serious. Huge number of them went back. Some were forced back. Huge number just went back, realising we're not getting anywhere from here. But realistically, I mean, there's loads and loads of footage from the last 2 nights when people had supposedly, 98% someone said had gone back. They clearly haven't. I mean, they clearly haven't because there are thousands of young men sort of skulking in side streets. And these men are going to try and get on boats to go the very short distance to get to Spain. And then, and technically on was that court ruling, they reckon part of this was what happened coming from Morocco, was that actually once you're in Ceuta, which is not even a Spanish territory, they call it Spain. Fascinating, by the way. How is it that Spain claims Gibraltar but claims a part of Morocco?
Yes.
We can't have Gibraltar because it's basically part of Spain, they say.
But they can take parts of Africa.
I mean, let's have some consistency, please, Senor. But I mean, this is shocking, and this is the future. This is the future. And it was fascinating to see the Germans and the Italians basically go, whoa, we're going to suspend Schengen. You are going to have to act on this, Spain.
It's the European dream is disintegrating in front of their eyes. So to suspend the Schengen zone would be a massive hit for the EU promises that they were all made, which is I'm so glad that we're out of it.
But even the 600,000+ foreigners, I mean, lots of them from South America and from Africa, who have been sort of basically allowed to stay legally, you know, basically given an amnesty by Sanchez, again, small point, socialist Prime Minister of Spain, they're not going to be allowed to work or live in the other parts of Europe. Well, good luck with that. If you're not, because how are you going to be checking who they are? Whether I mean, again, some of those people are going to turn up where we are because there'll be more jobs in Britain. There'll be you get far more benefits. With this has become our problem. Thank God for Brexit, by the way, because if there was a deal where they'd gone, oh, we're going to have to share our fair share of these people.
They'd be here in the next week.
I've said for quite a long time, and certainly in the next 10 years, we're basically going to have, I mean, like America and Mexico, a border wall around Europe. It's just going to go up because we simply... The idea that anyone who lives in a rubbish country, and Morocco by all accounts, you know, it's technically a constitutional democracy with some elements of democracy. It ain't the worst repressive state in the world. I'm sorry, there are jobs there, there's tourism, there's, you know. But the idea that anyone who lives in a vaguely basket case country can just, I think I'll just come and live in Europe, or I'll just go and live in America, and I've got a right to do that. Sorry, here's the thing: if your country is rubbish, why don't you stay? Why don't you stay and help sort it out? Why don't you stay and try and campaign for greater freedoms and the free market and things like that?
And improve the economy by starting up a business or do something. If they're so entrepreneurial that they can get across a small piece of water, then why can't they start a business?
And if you're so worried about the terrible state of repression in your country, you're so worried about poverty, and you're so worried about climate change, which apparently is the other thing, hey, maybe bring your wife, your kids and your mum. Yeah, maybe don't just come over on your own with your little rucksack and your Adidas trainers and your mobile phone. Maybe you might want to bring, you know, some kids with you that apparently you're worried about. Sorry, none of this adds up. None of this adds up. This is all very, very questionable. Let's also talk, can we, about this Restore and Reform Pact, though, again, because Nigel Farage basically responded to the Restore Rupert Lowe offer. Basically saying, you know, he wants to form a broad coalition. And one of the things that Nigel Farage has often talked about is, you know, building a coalition where, and not having the sort of so-called extremist policies. I don't think mass deportation. I think deportation of anyone who doesn't have the right to live here is not an extreme policy. I think that used to be the norm. That used to be until 10 minutes ago. However, there are a lot of people who might feel uncomfortable about that. I mean, deporting people who arrived on channel boats or people, foreign criminals, I mean, unless you're a complete lunatic lefty, or, I don't know, a member of this government's cabinet, you probably don't object to that. But there is that thing for Nigel Farage about building that coalition, getting some Tory votes. Nobody I know who knows anything about politics thinks that there won't be some sort of deal if there isn't an outright majority for reform at the next election, which, by the way, is looking less and less likely with Nigel Farage's money issues, understandably. And I've raised a lot of concerns about that. But Restore, I mean, in Makerfield and Restore in the Manchester mayoral election last week, they're taking this sort of 8-9%. They are hitting what would otherwise be a reform vote. Should they do a deal?
I think it's difficult to see how they do a deal, because looking at the two individuals in charge of both of those parties, neither one is going to give any ground. So Rupert Lowe has put out his, I will have a pact with you, let's all be friends if you agree to my 5 key asks. Now, Nigel Farage isn't going to do that.
Should we just say what they are quickly? So mass deportation of both illegal and legal migrants who live off welfare or fail to integrate, reversing the Islamification of Britain, ban the burqa, halal and kosher slaughter and cousin marriage. I'm in favour of all of those. Calling for a referendum on reintroducing the death penalty. I'm not in favour of the death penalty, but I don't think it's unreasonable to have a referendum on it. Deep cuts to welfare to make the UK self-sufficient. I mean, he says, basically, former Conservative ministers like Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman to be excluded from any Reform Restore cabinet. Now, that's unlikely to be something that would be agreed to. Although Zia Youssef would rather like that. He's not a fan of the Tories coming
But it was quite interesting in Nigel Farage's response to this, he said, I wouldn't turn against my team. So I think that was a direct reference to having those former members of the Conservative Party.
That would not. I don't think in the event of coming up to a general election or after a general election that would actually be necessarily a big sticking point. Is there an argument, though, that, OK, a by-election, a mayoral election with a ridiculously low turnout, 20% last week, again, millions of pounds spent, and basically no one cares. They're on holiday, they've got better things to do, frankly. But in a general election, when there is an option to actually have a government that could really change things, would that focus the minds of people who, I vote tactically, I live in pretty much a Labour seat. I mean, on one level, does it matter how I vote in terms of, I always vote, but people vote tactically. We've seen that on the left. We see it increasingly on the right. There'll be a lot of people who go, I'm Tory, but if Reform got a chance in this seat or the other way around. Would Restore people also do that? Given, OK, it's either a Labour MP, Green coalition Labour or something, or you could hold your nose and vote for Nigel Farage or Kemi Badenoch.
I think it would depend on what the pact actually looks like and who was in a position of power, because there are those people who believe that Rupert Lowe should be the leader, those people that believe that Nigel Farage should be the leader, and neither will change their mind.
And they're both big egos.
And they are both big egos. So I think unless that is sorted out, unless there is some kind of evidence they can work together, which in the past it fell apart pretty quickly, I don't think it's up to much. And I do wonder the timing of Rupert Lowe's little announcement. Why did he do that? Why did he choose then to do it? Trying to take the headlines away? I'm just a little suspicious as the motives behind it.
Indeed. And also public rather than private, or maybe there's been private overtures. We don't know. We got a Reform press conference coming at 11. We did have a Reform guest on at midday who's pulled out. Someone who's pulled out a number of times when they've been booked on the show. Not impressed with that, people. Got to be honest with you. Not a big fan. Professionalise, people. Professionalise. If you book onto a show, you turn up to the show. I'm old-fashioned like that. But, if you want to bother any Reform folk and say, would you like them to actually come on the show so we can have a proper conversation about these issues? Love to hear from them. Do give us a call. I want to hear your thoughts on anything and everything we're talking about, the Channel Boat migrants, the Ceuta invasion, all of that. But crucially, I want to hear your thoughts on this offer from Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe, former Reform UK MP, of course, offering Reform a pact to unite, he calls the patriotic right. Bearing in mind, there'll be a lot of talk about should there be a pact with the Tories. I mean, we're just looking at complete, could we have a unity on the right? Would that mean there'd actually be a government that might deal with some of the issues we want dealt with? Should Nigel Farage agree to a pact? Tell us why he should. Tell us why he shouldn't. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think it'll happen? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. But as always, if you want to call it on something else, do feel free. We're going to take a quick break. Take your calls up next. This is Talk.
$49,000 people are leaving Morocco because apparently it's war-torn. But Jet2 this morning are offering 20% off a trip to Morocco for a week. Which country in Europe wipes everybody else's backside but its own people? Here.
This is a huge football story, folks. UEFA has now said no European nation will participate in any FIFA competition so long as proposals to create a company to run the World Cup remain alive.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 10:27 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000. In particular, asking you to call in about this offer from Restore leader Rupert Lowe to Nigel Farage about a pact to unite the patriotic right. Do you think it'll happen? Should it? Shouldn't it? Let's talk to Spike, who's in Hampshire. Hello, Spike.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. Now, Spike, is that your given name? Is it on your birth certificate?
It's on my passport. It's on my driving licence.
As in Milligan? Oh, God, I love that, Spike. Wonderful. Right, tell me, my darling, what do you think of this offer of a pact?
Personally, I think it's tainted. I think what Lowe's doing, he's trying to set up reform or Farage for a fall. He's making this offer stating it's in the country's interest, knowing that Farage will not accept the conditions he's laid down.
Yeah. Don't give public conditions that you know.
Exactly. And now, when Farage turns around and says, sorry, I'm not going to stab my people in the back just for you, then Lowe will turn around and say, look at that, Farage, he's putting his own interest before country interest.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And especially as when Nigel Farage's response in that statement on Twitter last night was about, building a broad coalition.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. But again, it's about appealing to, let's face it, a load of Conservatives who in a local constituency go, oh, Reform have got a better chance, I'll vote for Reform. Whereas they probably wouldn't if he was linked up with Restore, given... I've got no problem with Rupert Lowe. I think he talks a lot of sense. Some of the people linked to that party I've got a very big problem with.
Yeah, but...
you don't trust it?
It's the sort of usual inter-party shenanigans. When they see politicians on the ropes, they go for the throat, don't they?
Yeah.
They just try to wipe them out.
Very interesting.
Farage is having problems regarding this £5 million donation,
How much of a problem do you think that is? There's no doubt at all, his personal ratings, I mean, there's a load of people who hate him anyway, we don't care about them, but his personal ratings among people who might otherwise be, oh, OK. I've got a problem with the £5 million, and he knows that. In my interviews, made it very clear. Do you think, how big an issue do you think that's going to be for him?
Well, to my mind, he was given that money. All right, it was, I think, 9 or 10 months before he became an MP. Now,
well, no, it wasn't. It was far less than that.
Was it?
Yeah, far less. And also, all of the reports now, Sunday Times, more investigations suggesting he was doing deals, about returning money, getting money in the months beforehand and a deal had already been made. That is the allegation now, that he did know, therefore it is declarable. Is that a problem for you or not? Does it make no difference?
No, not really, because it's just, as I said before, Farage is a thorn in the side of the establishment, right?
Yeah.
So when the establishment sees a little chink in the armour, they all pile in for it, and they'll keep biting at it like a terrier.
It's almost like they're a very clever man like Nigel Farage should have foreseen that and therefore not given them any ammunition.
But as he said at the time, he wasn't an MP, and he accepted it. Maybe at the time he did not think he was going to be an MP.
Except that the Sunday Times keeps reporting that there was evidence that he was thinking about coming back. And again, Spike, really appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Love to hear your thoughts on what Spike had to say. Let's talk to John. He's in the Dordogne in France, as he always calls in. For John, good morning to you. What do you want to say?
I was a lifelong Tory, like all Reform, most Reform. I'm now a member. I love Rupert Lowe when he's in these parliamentary things and pulling the civil servants for people.
Oh, yeah. He's superb, yeah.
Absolutely. He just ripped them apart. I listened to the full transcript of the video yesterday and I was amazed. I've been praying for him to come back. But now I don't know.
Wait a minute, you'd like Lowe back in Reform, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but not...
That's not going to happen.
Well, no, I agree, totally agree. What he was asking for yesterday was crazy.
What? Which bit?
All of it. The bit about Ceuta
Yeah,
and
dropping Jenrick and Ceuta Braverman. I mean, that's just not.
Tories.
That's not going to
They're
happen.
all Tories, all of it.
Well, an awful lot.
Tories.
I mean, Richard Tice, Nigel Farage were Tories.
It's crazy. Anyway, my opinion is it's doomed to fail.
Yeah.
Sadly, I mean, maybe we can get Ben back. I don't know, but you know, I said to Ian about half an hour ago in Collins, there'll be more attacks. The more of them that come in, there's going to be more attacks.
Okay.
You know, big attacks.
We shall see. Yeah, it's going to keep going. John, thank you. So it's a bit of a funny line. It kept coming in and out. Thank you very much for that, John. Coming up, we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to Sun columnist David Wooding. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. 10:34 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearsall's still with us. I'll get her thoughts on what my next guest has to say. Columnist at The Sun, David Wooding joins us. A very good morning to you, David.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. I've asked you about the story we've just been talking about. Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe offering reform a pact to unite the patriotic right. Should Nigel Farage agree to the pact? Tell us whether you think he should or he shouldn't. It's interesting, despite one of our callers just now just saying it's a tainted offer and Rupert Lowe's playing games and setting Nigel up for a fall. Do you reckon that's the case?
I think that you're right, Julia, in that sooner or later the right of politics is going to have to unite in order to form a government and stop a Labour/left coalition getting in. Of course, the fact that Andy Burnham has bounced in popularity, and if he can maintain that, is going to make it increasingly difficult for the right to win the next election, especially if it's called early, which we all suspect he might do. But the problem with that deal offered by Restore is it contains so many unacceptable issues, such as removing Robert Jenrick and so forth. Nigel Farage is not really going to throw them under a bus, I wouldn't have thought.
And that would be such a big attack on his authority and his decisions in the last few years. I mean, that I simply can't see that. And that would make him look like, frankly, it would make him look very two-faced. I don't think voters would like that. That said, we know a lot of Reform voters aren't too keen on a lot of the Reform people coming. And I have to say, I've got big question marks about, I mean, again, nothing personal, but Nadine Dorries, far too associated with a lot of failures. At least, Robert Jenrick and Ceuta Braverman and others are actually people who spoke out, resigned from government and spoke out and were trying to actually push policies and were saying these things before, the Tory collapse, so they've got some credibility there. Nadine was still cheerleading for Boris Johnson, for goodness sake.
Yeah, absolutely, even when it was all going wrong. The other issue, again, probably not one that will worry too many everyday voters out there, is a referendum on the death penalty. I think, while it's extremely popular in the country, I think 70% perhaps at the last poll would vote for a return of the death penalty. It's not something that mainstream politicians want to do. They don't believe that a civilized society like Britain should be sending people to the gallows anymore. And that would be a difficult one to accept. I'm not sure where Nigel Farage stands on that one, but that would be a difficult one to go ahead.
I mean, exactly. I'm opposed to the death penalty. I don't think, in principle, there's anything wrong with having a referendum on an issue like that, given that the public were lied to when the death penalty was removed, and they were lied to because they were told that people would get served life, and people don't serve life behind bars, and we know that. But yeah, I mean, again, cuts in welfare, mass deportations. Again, that's another thing that Nigel Farage has been sort of rowing back a bit from, and then sort of rowing back to. There's been quite a lot of movement in terms of how many people be deported, and he's right to say, let's be realistic. Let's prioritise the people who we definitely, the foreign criminals, the people who've arrived illegally, getting them out. But realistically, and we've seen what happened in America with ICE agents. Okay, that's rather different. The masks and guns and the like will be very different here. But actually, the backlash we'll get from the hand-washing, hand-wringing liberals, the lanyard classes over deporting families who have no right to be in this country would be huge. I personally have no issue with anyone. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what your situation is. If you've no right to be here, you've no right to be here. And that's the end of the matter. I could deal with a process where people are allowed to, have a small appeal and we'll, are you actually a very contributing member of society, and can we legalise a certain number of people? Maybe, but a tiny minority. But these issues are going to, well, it's not going to go away. None of them are going to go away unless or until someone deals with this. And there's no evidence that the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is going to deal with it. You touched on Andy Burnham's polls. He said a polls bounce, a lot of fear of an early election. We sort of appeared to rule it out, but not completely. What counts as an early election anyway? But I am flabbergasted by this bounce. I knew there would be somewhat a bounce. And actually, a lot of it is simply, before he even took over, we weren't going to have to deal with Keir Starmer anymore. And everyone's so bloody relieved not to have Keir Starmer on the telly anymore. We're all just enjoying that. But Andy Burnham, and he looked so out of his depth yesterday in his little suit and tie on the White Cliffs of Dover, talking about how he was going to be relentless in dealing with the Channel Boat issue and how they were going to look for changing the whole approach. Every single thing he says he's going to do is just going to do it differently, as if no one's thought of doing that before. But he hasn't actually announced how he's going to do anything at all.
No, he's given us a few sweeties, hasn't he, Julia? I mean, £2 bus fares, the 5% VAT removed from energy bills, which I
89p a week.
86, actually, Julia.
86.
Britain's counts. 86p a week. It's nothing, is it? And it makes people feel good. This is why we've had the bounce, because we haven't got Keir Starmer, as you rightly say, but we've got somebody there who's talking about in a positive way. He's puts videos up of himself with the Chancellor eating scampi fries and pork scratchings and peanuts in a pub.
That was the most bizarre video I've ever seen by a Prime Minister, by the way.
It is bizarre. In fact, I don't follow Andy Burnham on social media because when he was Mayor of Manchester, it wasn't too interested in what he was saying about Manchester. But I'm being bombarded in my feed, so I don't know whether he's paying some advertising to get these things out. But I can't switch on my mobile phone without a video going in my face of Andy Burnham doing something silly.
Quick question, what do you call a bread roll? He calls it a balm.
I call it a balm. But to be honest, I think I've lived in the South now for 30 odd years, and I don't use the word balm.
Because no one knows what you're talking about.
I don't call the police the busies, as I used to call them in Liverpool. I don't call them the old Bill, but I might call them cops or police or something. But there are certain things you realise you.
But it's all touchy-feely stuff, and that's great. And he's much better at it, and he's much more likeable and approachable and normal than Keir Starmer, who just always looked uncomfortable and also thought we were all horrible bigots. And I don't think Andy Burnham does think that. But at the end of the day, it's just flim-flam. Again, when he talks about we're going to be dealing with the boats, again, we're going to try a different approach, and it's going to be relentless. Doing what? Doing what? What are you actually going to do? Social care. Doing what? Oh, well, we're going to speed up the review. We're going to tackle this. We're going to tackle welfare. Doing what? We haven't actually got any actual substance to, as far as I can tell, any policy whatsoever yet.
Well, I think what he's done, Julia, is he's given us a few easy deliverables He's shown us he's a happy, cheerful, upbeat person, and that's changed the mood in the nation a little bit.
Has it?
I think it.
I think it's just the summer holidays.
I think a lot of people who are perhaps Labour inclined, who are dreaming of going somewhere else, have come back and thought, do you know what? This he's a bit more likeable. I like him. You know, people do like him.
I like him.
Yeah. And so he's done these easy liberals. People say, oh, look, he's done this already. Meanwhile, that's buying him time. And now we've got the summer recess till September to try and come up with ideas to crack the real big problems: defence, migration, the economy, growth, all those issues. Nothing he's done so far is going to crack those issues.
No, nothing he's spoken about so far. Again, by all accounts, over the weekend it emerged that his new Chancellor, John Healey, didn't actually get agreement to 3% of GDP being spent on defence by 2030, which was what he said was needed when he resigned as Defence Secretary under Keir Starmer. So what the hell is he doing in that government?
Well, the thing we hear a lot from Andy Burnham, the phrase we heard a lot is we need to do more on this. That's what he said yesterday about migration. Yeah. Yes, there have been some positives, we've made progress, but we need to do more. Well, we know we need to do more. Everybody's known that for years. What is the more? That's the question he needs to answer.
Yeah, that's the thing we don't hear. Just some breaking news, literally handed to me while you're speaking there. It's just emerged that Richard Tice is now, obviously, deputy leader of the Reform Party. He is now under investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Czar for allegedly failing to declare a financial interest. This is the Standards Commissioner Daniel Greenberg has launched an investigation into Reform UK deputy leader, saying a complaint made against Tice over an undeclared loan of nearly £80,000 from George Cottrell, Gorgeous George, as he's known, Posh George, one of Nigel Farage's closest aides and a convicted fraudster from many years ago. And he's now confirmed that investigation is underway of his failure to declare an interest. Now, basically, this is, you know, we're in the same sort of territory, aren't we, of not declaring that, you know, that you've got money from somebody. And MPs are required to declare an interest on any money they've had related to their politics in the year before they're elected as well. This is where Nigel Farage has got unstuck with his $5 million from Chris Harborne and some money from George Cottrell as well. How serious do you think this is? And is this, as a lot of people in Reform think, a big establishment stitch-up?
Well, it may well be, Julia, but there's a lot of this mud will stick. People don't actually read the details. No. I mean, you, like me, you probably read the Sunday Times story yesterday. There was a lot of nitty-gritty detail in there, and it took quite two readings in some cases to try and get to the bottom of what it was actually saying. Most people don't read that. All they take is the background noise, which is that there's something dodgy about Reform's funding, and the drip of this is having an effect. And I think that's why Nigel Farage may be driven to the negotiating table about a deal on the right, because you've got Andy Burnham's bounce eating into his leadership popularity. You've got Reclaim UK, Restore UK.
There's a lot of them, don't worry.
Restore UK nicking votes. You've got the rise in effectiveness of Kemi Badenoch as the Tory leader, and then you've got all this business with the funding of Reform UK.
But again, you said this phrase. You said this dodgy funding. There's no actual evidence there's anything dodgy. No. It's just a question of whether it's been correctly. The admin has been done. I mean, Nigel Farage scaling, it's got nothing to do with politics. It was money I could spend on what I wanted. But you know, this money. There's no reason why this money isn't. It's no more or less dodgy than any major donation to a political party in this country.
No, it's the drip though, Julia, of it. In the same way, you know, Angela Rayner was found to have done nothing wrong by the HMRC over her stamp duty payment not being made. But nevertheless,
apart from the fact she hadn't paid her full thing. But is it? I think that's one of the things that people understand. It's like including you and me, who've been political watchers for a long time. There are some things where, you know, we've all had to pay stamp duty when we bought a home. When someone who's in charge of stamp duty, as housing secretary, does it on the second home, doesn't pay it herself. That, you know, we can feel that people who've been, you know, Louise Haigh, you know, convicted for fraud, for goodness sake, in a previous job, didn't declare it. The expenses scandal, people people, trying to bill for, cleaning their moat, for goodness sake, not paying for their, the tellies that we would save up to buy, they're just getting on the, on the expenses, but then swapping homes. That stuff, people really say, Boris Johnson, while we're all not seeing our parents and our siblings, having a party, non-stop parties in Number 10. And by the way, it wasn't just cake. There were parties every other night, as far as I can tell, in Number 10 throughout lockdown. So, I mean, people, there's the stuff that's much more tangible, but most people don't understand why someone who's living in Thailand is giving 5 million quid to a bloke in Britain. I'm sorry, but that's where it looks dodgy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's had an impact also on the demeanour of Nigel Farage.
Hasn't it? Yeah.
He's looked a little bit rattled. He's looked less friendly when questioned. And one of his great popularity pluses is that he's good communicator on television, but when he starts to look a little bit angry and as if he's losing it, then it's
well,
not a good
we'll see what his demeanour is at 11 o'clock at that press conference. David, we're doing some columnists. Thank you so much. So just a quick reaction to all of that.
I think it's really interesting that David just picked up on the TikTok Prime Minister that we have at the moment, because my son, who is a teenager, handed me his phone and said, this keeps coming up, and it was sort of pictures of Andy Burnham, and he said there are loads of them, and he's scrolling through, and it is absolutely non-stop, but that's what we've not had previously. I hope it doesn't continue, because the one with John Healey was hideous.
Judging Barsnack, genuinely, please spend your time improving the country. 10:48's time, we're going to take a quick break. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Up next, we're going to be talking to a guest about what on earth has been going on in the last few days in Ceuta. And is it true that everyone's just, they've all just gone back home to Morocco? Because that is not what video footage from even last night in that Spanish enclave is suggesting. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
$49,000 people are leaving Morocco because apparently it's war-torn. But Jet2 this morning are offering 20% off a trip to Morocco for a week. Which country in Europe wipes everybody else's backside but its own people? Here.
This is a huge football story, folks. UEFA has now said no European nation will participate in any FIFA competition so long as proposals to create a company to run the World Cup remain alive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning, welcome back. This is Talk. 10:50 is the time. Let's talk about a story which, well, absolutely hit us like, a blow to the head on Thursday last week, been in the news ever since, and that was the, let's use that word, invasion of Spanish territory on the African continent, but off the country of Morocco, of some 60,000 young men swimming in the sea, climbing over barriers, just storming into a tiny little Spanish enclave enclave, officially Spanish, not Spanish territory, but officially part of Spain, just on the south of Gibraltar, effectively, and marauding across the streets. The Spanish army was called in. Many were turned back. Many chose to go home when locals boarded up their shops and homes and said, hey, we're not even selling you a bottle of water, go home. But we're told, 98% have gone home. That is not what video footage from Ceuta is suggesting in the last 24, 48 hours. Let's talk about that with Stefan Thompson, founder of Visegrad24. They're a major account on X and a major news website. Very good morning to you, Stefan.
Hi, good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, we've heard so many different versions of why these people came. Was it people smugglers? I mean, they weren't helping them swim across the water. Was it the Moroccan government in the battles with the Spanish over something, or was it just an out of the blue? Everyone just heard people are storming across and just stormed. What do you think actually motivated this sudden storming of the beaches of Ceuta?
It's important to understand that this has happened before and has been used as a foreign policy tool by the Moroccan government, partially in disagreements about the status of Western Sahara. The Moroccans believe Western Sahara is integral Moroccan territory. Other countries disagree. The Spaniards have an ambivalent status towards Western Sahara. So they've used this tactic before. I think the most important thing about this story is that we finally have an incredibly cinematic visualization of the scale of the problem that has been plaguing the European continent in a trickle format for years. This is the first time we see it organized. We see the scale of it. We see the animosity of the people who are coming. And it's important to understand that the 80,000 people that, according to Spanish authorities, managed to cross, this is just a drop in the water in the scale of people who have come illegally and legally as well, and transformed the demographics of the European continent. So in Ceuta, the majority of the people ended up departing. As you pointed out in the intro, Ceuta it really is. It's kind of difficult to describe how tiny it is. It really sort of is like Gibraltar, even smaller, really. There's only 84,000 inhabitants there. It's a negligible amount of people, doesn't have the infrastructure, and 80,000 people arrived. 72 people drowned or died in a stampede as well as they attempted to cross. It's a tragic situation. Obviously, one feels huge amounts of empathy to these poor people. Imagine how miserable life must be if you're willing to storm a tiny little enclave in search of a better life.
But again, you say that. But again, as always, the vast majority of the people doing this were young, able-bodied men. I imagine life's much harder for the elderly, the women, disabled, others, but miraculously, very few of them.
Well, they don't. The elderly would have a tough time swimming across, wouldn't they, Julia?
You know what? But if I was living in a miserable country, by the way, and again, Morocco, it's not a perfect country. Which country is? But it's got some elements of democracy. It is by no means the most repressive or bad country to be. This is not the worst of the worst. This is a country where there is more of a future and an option. There's tourism. We are not talking about some of the African basket case countries which other people are coming from. But we were told again and again. Something even Andy Burnham was saying. Our Prime Minister was on the White Cliffs of Dover yesterday, saying that 98% of people have been turned back. But there's loads of video footage reporting to be from the last couple of days where huge numbers of young men skulking about on the streets, clearly not locals, nowhere to go, middle of the night, 60,000 arrived. We know that tens of thousands have gone home, but it looks like thousands have remained.
3,000 to 5,000 have remained. There are several excellent journalists on the ground, including Alexei Lavoie from Rebel News, who flew in from Canada, including journalists from the Swedish outlet News, including the Nowhere photographer who's doing incredible work on X, who went there and documented. 3,000 to 5,000 have stayed and have declared that they will not leave. And so, as you correctly pointed out, the vast majority of those who arrived as a sort of almost a flash mob and promptly left because there's simply nothing to do. No one's feeding them, no one's providing them with aid, no one's providing them with refugee status. They simply left.
Except the Spanish. One of the reasons people thought this had actually been, the motivation was that there had been a court ruling by Spain that someone in Ceuta could not be deported. because it was Spanish territory.
There was a court order, correct, that says that if you swim abroad, if you swim into Spain, you will be processed as a refugee. It is. I think actually the correct reaction to all of this is to laugh. The radicals who have taken control of several European countries and of numerous institutions, I think at the end of the day, more than hearty debate, what they truly fear is laughter and mockery, and we really shouldn't.
Except it isn't. I mean, it isn't funny. I mean, Sanchez, the Scottish, the socialist Prime Minister of Spain. I mean, the amnesty for, they thought 500,000-600,000 people working illegally. A lot of them actually from South America, not from Africa and Middle East. But almost 700,000 being granted the right to stay. Even the other countries like Germany and France and Italy.
Julia, it's more than that.
More than that actually been granted. I was told they hadn't actually been granted.
1.2 million
have applied
and are currently being processed.
Yeah.
And Vox opposition leaders suggest it will be as many as 3 million will end up being processed under that amnesty.
Yeah, I mean, this is properly an insane policy. And it's interesting that other European leaders now, but Giorgia Meloni leaving the way, but Schulz, of course, in Germany, basically say, no. I mean, we could see the end of the Schengen zone at this point, could we not?
Yes. You say it's insane policy. It's actually not. If you look at it from the perspective of a socialist, you see the exact same pattern in France, where hard left socialists, sort of people who almost lean into Marxism, so Pedro Sanchez in Spain, Jean-Luc Mélenchon in France, they have realized that they cannot usher in their socialist utopia with the ethnic people. So Jean-Luc Mélenchon is perhaps one of France's most talented politicians, a deeply disagreeable man with a deeply horrific view of what his country should look like. But they are making strategic alliances across sort of progressive forces, and on the other hand, essentially imported voters. So from Sanchez's perspective, it makes all the sense in the world.
It's a very, very sane policy. And again, we're dealing with a left-wing government in this country, but Andy Burnham, probably the most left-wing prime minister we've had in many a decade. And again, lots of people in his cabinet, a lot of his MPs, they fundamentally believe in open borders. Stephen Thompson, I hope you'll come on the show again, founder of Visegrad 24. Always really interesting to follow those pieces. And it is fascinating how most of the most accurate reporting of this story has come from, online sites, not from the mainstream media, Claire Pearsall.
That's right. And I think he's spot on when he said it is those reporters who are out there on the ground reporting online, and they have the video footage to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, we had hordes of young men, I think it was on Saturday night, running through the streets shouting Allahu Akbar.
Yes.
I know I found that very reassuring. I don't know about you. I remember thinking, well, I hope they can make their way to Spain and then perhaps to Britain one day.
Exactly.
They look like people I'd definitely like to live next door to.
Doctors and surgeons
and hopefully
and
maybe
engineers.
could get a hostel near, a primary school near me.
Oh, lovely. I mean, it'll be welcoming.
And again, I just don't know, have we got enough surgeons and engineer jobs for them all? What with all those qualifications they're going to bring? I mean, seriously?
I know.
This stuff is insane, and no one... I mean, again, and I think he's right, Stephen's right, you have to laugh at it because, wow, what else would you do? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Reform Press Conference up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's go live right now to central London, where Nigel Farage is holding a press conference with Zia Youssef. Let's go live over to that conference.
Against it, but of course to no avail. And that stupidity was compounded, of course, by Angela Merkel saying, anyone that wants to come, we can manage, we can accommodate you. And it's had pretty dire consequences. One only has to think about what's happened to the city of Malmo, previously a fairly peaceful port, now one of the murder and rape hotspots in the whole of Europe. And in many ways, in the run-up to the referendum in 2016, the reason that I launched that breaking point poster was to say Europe has given itself massive problems for decades to come, but we can avoid this by leaving the European Union and getting back control of our borders. Sadly, governments after 2016 were in power but never really believed in the Brexit project, and even when Brexit finally came, there was no change to our status with the ECHR. And that was why 5 years ago, single-handedly, I went out repeatedly into the English Channel, videoing, YouTubing the growing number of boats crossing the English Channel, and I made the argument that you might just as well put a sign on the White Cliffs of Dover, everyone welcome, because the chances of deportation were then, and are today, so incredibly slim. I said I believed if it wasn't stopped, that it would lead, literally, in numerical terms, to an invasion of our country. Well, under the Conservatives, 130,000 people arrived via that route. The vast majority, young males of fighting age, who willfully discard their iPhones and their passports into the English Channel at the 12-mile line. And I've been out and I've filmed that too. In the end, Boris Johnson reacted with a speech at Lid Airport announcing the Rwanda plan. But it was doomed to failure from day one because of our continuing presence as part of the European Convention on Human Rights. I have to say, the fact we've given the French over £1 billion and that their navy still escort boats from a couple of hundred yards off the beach all the way across to a 12-mile line, that is something that needs to stop. And whatever videos or pictures you see of the French police slashing boats, the fact is that the traffickers have become even smarter. And in the last 3 weeks, we've seen several launches coming from as far west as Normandy. All the while, the pull factor of coming to the UK, being able to stay, all the while that pull factor is still there. It doesn't matter how much money we give the French, the boats will continue to come. And of course, many of those that have come are people who in some cases wish us harm or do us harm. As we speak, there is a man, charming chap, Kalashnikov tattooed on his face, currently in prison in this country, who's threatened repeatedly to kill me, and no doubt that promise remains when he's out in a few months' time. But there isn't a single week that goes by where we don't see stories of serious crimes, sexual assaults, rapes, and we know for a fact that many that are now coming come with the deliberate attempt of joining criminal gangs in Britain as soon as they come. But it is worse than that. I first started voicing this again 5 years ago to say this would become, or could become, then, a national security emergency. And that is exactly what it is. Repeatedly, I've asked the Prime Minister, well, the last Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, in PMQs, whether he would declare a national security emergency. 2 months ago, I told the Home Secretary and the House of Commons that I had it on the highest authority that the Iranian regime was using the Channel crisis to put their own operatives across the English Channel. I was met by shouts of shame on you. Well, shame on them, because once again it proves that I was ahead of the curve on this, and indeed that is what is happening. So Operation Fortress will be a combined military operation. It will save lives, it will help the French in fulfilling their job of stopping the boats, and it will save a huge amount of money. We are very confident that our policy of securely picking people up and safely taking them back to France, we are entirely confident that that falls within other conventions of international law, and you'll see that argued clearly in this document. And when you think about it, what is the Royal Navy for? If the Royal Navy is not there to protect this country from invasion, then frankly, I can't see what its purpose is. We now see a Conservative shadow Home Secretary going into the English Channel 5 years too late and making exactly the same arguments now that I've made for 5 years. But remember, in their 2010, 15, 17 and 19 manifestos, they promised net migration down to tens of thousands a year and shouldn't be believed. And even since Andy Burnham has become Prime Minister, already 2,000 people have crossed the English Channel. There is an argument doing the rounds in the media that it's okay. It's fine. The numbers are 40% lower than they were this time last year. But it only takes one or two Iranian terrorists to come into Britain and commit a mass atrocity for this to be a disaster. The Australians faced all of these problems many years ago. They tried offshore processing. They tried a number of things, and in the end what worked was towing the boats back to Indonesia. And since then, hardly a boat has landed in Australia. I am entirely confident that under a reform government, within a fortnight, there would be no more boats. And whilst this issue may not be uppermost in the minds of many in Westminster, I can tell you out in the country, it is. And that comes down to a simple point: fairness. What is fair? What is right? What is wrong? Those who come to Britain legally now go through a long, expensive process. It's unfair on them. And to now see a situation where those that come to Britain illegally via these means go to the top of social housing lists all over the country is simply unfair. I do not have much confidence that this Prime Minister will grip this, but I very much hope that I'm wrong, and I will ask Zia to lay out more of the operational details. Thank you.
Zia Yusuf now up to speak. Let's have a listen to what he has to say.
A nation that cannot control its borders is not a sovereign nation. And Britain is being invaded. For decades, Tory and Labour governments promised to get tough on illegal immigration. And yet, year after year after year, tens of thousands of fighting-age males have arrived on our beaches. In fact, the total number of illegal immigrants in this country now stands at well over 1 million. The United Kingdom is being invaded. Over 200,000 people have landed illegally on our shores over 8 years. Now that's a staggering figure, and it exceeds the total number of Allied troops who stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. Those who arrive are unvetted, mainly military-aged men from Iran, Afghanistan, Syria and Iraq. Now, they have been rewarded for this by a political class that puts them up in hotels at the British taxpayers' expense, given free meals, free healthcare, free TV licenses, and even free trips to the safari park and to the cinema. And never forget, as Nigel said, that it was the Tories that allowed 130,000 to arrive. Labour is simply continuing their betrayal. Even those that commit heinous crimes are routinely defended by so-called human rights lawyers who succeed in preventing even convicted rapist illegal migrants from being deported. All thanks to Tory and Labour politicians who prioritise the rights of foreign citizens over our own. Now, some of those arriving illegally by boat have already attempted terrorist attacks on our soil. Some have committed gruesome murders, like on the night of the 20th of October 2024. A 27-year-old young lady called Rhiannon White had just finished her shift at the Park Inn Hotel. She was on the phone to a friend as she walked to the railway station. While she was on the platform, a Sudanese man inexplicably stabbed her 23 times with a screwdriver. She died in hospital 3 days later. Her killer, Deng Majek, had arrived in the UK illegally on a small boat 3 months before the attack. CCTV footage later showed him dancing and laughing. He was living in a hotel at taxpayer expense. Rhiannon's devastated mother said in court, quote, "It's always the undocumented illegal migrants that are doing this, and it's not fair." Also among those arriving are individuals who have actively plotted terror attacks on our soil. Intelligence reports confirm that hostile actors, including Iranian terrorists, are exploiting these very routes. The safety of the British people is being put at risk every single day. And the patience of the British people is now exhausted. We're unwilling to accept that Britain's borders should be open and undefended, unwilling to accept that our own veterans who served our nation with valour and distinction are being evicted from their homes to house fighting-age males from Iraq and Afghanistan who turned up on our beaches uninvited. As Nigel said, this is a national security emergency. Yet, successive Tory and Labour governments have treated this emergency with contemptible weakness. Rather than defending the realm, they have turned state agencies into a free taxi service and provided taxpayer-funded hotels for those who break our laws. They surrendered the English Channel to criminal cartels. Under Nigel's leadership, Reform UK will end this crisis for good. We will launch Operation Fortress, the biggest military operation in the English Channel since the Second World War. Under a Reform government, Prime Minister Farage will order His Majesty's Royal Navy to ensure that not a single unauthorised vessel makes it to the shores of the United Kingdom. Our plan, as you will see in the document, is endorsed by senior former members of our armed forces. It is simple. First, we will create an integrated surveillance command, unifying military and intelligence surveillance to make ours the most surveilled maritime border in the world. Second, any vessel attempting to cross illegally will be intercepted by our armed forces, who will return them back to France. Not a single illegal migrant trying to reach our shores will make it to Britain. To those with no right to enter Britain, our border will be impenetrable. Once the world realises that crossing the Channel illegally leads only to being intercepted by our Royal Marines and returned to France, the incentive structure breaks. These economic migrants will stop paying smugglers and the boats will stop coming. Now, I know many in the media are clamouring to ask, what happens if the French don't agree and Royal Marines attempt to land people on a beach? Let me be crystal clear. a reform government will show unflinching resolve to ensure that people who set out from France to break into Britain go back to France. That is our policy, not a future negotiating position with the French government. What France gets to decide is how that happens. Now look, we would far rather disembark people in port, walk people down a gangway and hand them to the French authorities properly. That is more dignified, and it is what we will negotiate for. And keep in mind, the official position of the French government is that they do not want these boats leaving their shores in the first place. Tory and Labour governments have paid them, as Nigel said, £1 billion of British taxpayer money to stop the boats, ostensibly. Our military would in fact be helping them comply with the very agreements that they signed. But if the Élysée Palace refuses, make no mistake, His Majesty's Royal Marines will disembark them safely on the very shore they left that morning. Those are the only two options. There is no third option, where a British government under reform just shrugs its shoulders and brings them back to Dover. That policy of Tory and Labour governments that has led to 200,000 illegal migrants arriving on our shores. That was the policy that led to the savage murder of Rhiannon White. The policy that has almost resulted in a mass casualty terrorist attack on our soil. And ask yourself what the alternative picture actually is. A president of France ordering French police onto a beach to block Royal Marines on a humanitarian mission from landing civilians in safety and forcing them back out to sea, directly endangering their lives? Well, that would be a crime against humanity. It is simply not a serious hypothetical that President Macron, or anybody else for that matter, would do that. And I do not believe the French public would stand for it if he did. And to the talking heads and useless politicians claiming this policy will not work, the evidence proves the opposite. In fact, it is the only thing that does. When Australia had a major illegal boats migration crisis, it was only when they launched a major military operation that it stopped. In fact, Tony Abbott's Operation Sovereign Borders cut illegal crossings to zero within weeks. A years-long crisis ended within weeks. And it also saved lives. Between 2007 and 2013, 1,200 migrants tragically died making the journey to Australia. The Australian military operation reduced that to zero. Over 170 migrants have already died trying to come to Britain via the Channel. Reform's proposed military operation to secure our borders will save migrant lives too. Now, expect fierce resistance from the Tory Labour establishment, claiming that this is impossible. Well, they have no choice but to call it impossible, lest they face the reality of their own failures. But the former Navy commanders who engineered this plan leave no room for doubt. It can be done. It must be done. The former senior members of our armed forces who endorsed this plan confirm this plan is viable and imperative to our national security. This is how we will stop the boats for good. Reform will end the invasion of Britain. Reform will put the British people first. Thank you.
Well, very interesting stuff there. We've been hearing from Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef. Of course, something I think Labour and the Tories have been saying, oh, well, you know, this is a policy you've talked about before. I mean, I think most policies are policies we've heard about before, are they not, these days? But very, very, very clear from Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef, a nation, as Zia Youssef says, that does not secure its borders is not a sovereign state. I mean, I think we can all agree on that, can we not, here at Talk? But basically, Operation Fortress, he says the biggest military operation in the Channel since World War II. I mean, it's not saying very much, not quite sure how many military vessels we have in the Royal Navy. Navy that can actually operate on this, but basically integrated surveillance command. I mean, well, we've had drones for a long time, people. We know when these boats are launching, and any vessel crossing illegally will be intercepted and will be returned to France. And basically, it can be done the nice way or the nasty way. The French can either agree to take these people, disembark them at ports and take them back, when, by the way, they'll stop coming. This is the point. They will stop coming to France because the only point of going to France, a lot of these people, is to get over to the UK. So if they're not coming to the UK, they may not go into France. Might work out quite well for French politicians, certainly those around Calais. If not, they'll be disembarked onto shores. I mean, if it's safe enough for them to get in the boats and the shores, what is the issue? Claire Pearsall, now you're a former Conservative government advisor. Are you one of the Tory Labour establishment who think this is impossible?
Yes.
Why? What's impossible about it?
I mean, there are so many problems with this. There are so many holes in this policy. Now, I don't disagree with need for secure borders. I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
No, they do. Lots of Labour people and Green people and Lib Dems.
I don't disagree.
They literally think we should have open borders to the whole world.
I'm all for detaining people and sending them back whence they came.
We can't do that, apparently, either.
Yeah, you can.
We can't detain them and we can't deport them. So isn't it better that we just don't let them in the country in the first place? Why? What is it? What is impossible about this? OK,
should we start with the number of vessels that we have currently available to us? 14 frigates or destroyers. OK, some of those are in dry dock and they're not working. So you need to increase the amount. If you're going to, if we're going to take this as doable, then you need to increase the amount of vessels that we have.
Which we need to do anyway, so I'm all in favour of that.
We absolutely do.
It's not beyond the wit of man.
We're not going to park a £1 billion Type 45 destroyer out in the middle of the channel when you're looking at very small boats, because the size difference just isn't going to work. So there are practicalities.
Buy some ferries. Lovely.
You need to have an agreement with France. You cannot go and sail your warship into French territorial waters.
Well, OK, but again, but here's the thing. OK. So they're perfectly OK. I mean, the migrants, sorry, the illegal migrants, people smugglers, they don't have an agreement with France to just sail around there, and yet they do.
What do you mean?
They're sitting sail and they don't seem to have an agreement, so what's stopping us?
But this is a warship, so if you're going to go and just sail your warship into French territorial waters...
Maybe it doesn't have to be... Maybe you don't use the warship, maybe you transfer them onto other vessels.
But this is the problem. We haven't seen this level of detail.
They can jump off if they choose, that's up to them.
So I'm allowed to criticise it for the lack of detail that we've got. On the basis of what Zia Youssef has just said,
there's a big document there. We haven't got that document right here, but that doesn't mean the detail's not there.
And I would like to get some views from those people who have been in defence support and support staff and people
we are going to be talking to Chris Parry, who is a former... I mean, no longer in reform, and he was in reform, but one of the many people who seems to have fallen out with. But he's former admiral. I mean, he'll know whether it can be done or not. So we'll get his views coming up in the next hour or so. But I mean, but as I say, they're actually helping France fulfil what they said they would do. Realistically, the only reason this wouldn't work is if France basically start firing on British vessels, right?
And they're not going to do that.
When they know they've got civilians aboard. So that's not going to happen.
No.
They could, however, do things, bearing in mind, remember a few years ago, they were threatening to cut the electricity off to the Channel Islands and things like that. They could start some sort of sanctions on us.
They could. I mean, there are a lot of things, and I think this is where you need to have the agreement. And I know that's a very boring
They're not going to agree.
aspect. No, of course they're not going to agree. But
even though it would be in their interest, because those people then wouldn't be sitting in Calais trying to get on boats.
But then that's where you have to have proper negotiations with them.
Well, I'm sorry, I've heard Labour say that for years. I heard Tories say that for years. It's not going to happen. The French aren't going to agree to take these people back.
I was just about to say that. You aren't going to get that. So you're going to need...
do it anyway.
And what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
What is France going to do?
Well, there are probably any
We're going to return the migrants that were on your shores, which you say shouldn't have set sail. We're going to return them to your border. So what are they going to do?
You're going to ask the Royal Navy to breach any rules of the sea.
Well, the rules of the sea, rescuing people and returning them to the nearest bit of land. What's wrong with that?
But it's not, is it? This is the point. You're going to drop them off where there is no agreement to do so. You can't just send them back onto the beach in France.
Yes, why not? There is nothing to stop them doing that.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. There are certain laws that they do have to follow, and you're asking the Royal Navy to breach those. So unless you can change any of those laws, this is going to be legal. It isn't going to work.
Again, I think getting them to safe land as opposed to in a dinghy.
I would much rather have all of these things ironed out.
We don't have to bring them to Britain. There's no law. There's no maritime law requiring us to bring them to Britain.
I would much rather see reform and sort of iron out any of these problems before they bring these headlines to us, because all it is
you
going
don't know.
to be doomed to fail.
They will be in there. They've said that they believe that they've got this watertight in terms of...
But then why didn't they say that now?
Because
they're only putting the headline facts out.
Yeah, they're putting the fact. Well, there's a document they're publishing. Nigel Farage is taking questions. We'll make sure someone has listened and see if there's any more detail there. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, Claire and I, we don't actually disagree that often on this, but I genuinely, my thing is, again, we don't want to fall out with France. Why not? I don't have an issue. I'm sorry, you fall out with your friends when your friends are in the wrong, OK? When your friends are doing something that hurts you, I think you should fall out with your friends. They have done nothing since the vote in 2016 for Brexit, other than to try and harm us economically and politically. They have gone out of their way to do that. Well, not the French people, the French leadership, Macron. I simply don't have any duty of care towards them. These are your problem. You're not getting to ship them off to us and sat smoking your gitanes and not doing anything about it. You know, you go on your 3-hour lunches and all the boats set sail. No, we're sending them back. There you go, your problem. We will be helping the French. It will actually help the French because there'll be to get the message across, and anyone who thinks that the biggest issue is that 170 people have died in the Channel, they're not desperate people. You're in France. You're not in Syria in the middle of a war. Assad's not bombing you. You're in France, and if you choose to get on a rickety, pay thousands of pounds or hundreds as it is now to get on a dinghy, you're just foolhardy rather than desperate. And I'm sorry, I've got no sympathy anymore. Again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm done. Not our problem anymore. Simple as that. Not our problem. Ship them back, and if the French don't like it, I don't care. What are you going to do about it, France, is my answer. I want to hear your thoughts. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. This is Talk.
Julia Hartley-Brewer's Talk Nation on Talk. Signal, drive, talk, travel trouble.
Slow traffic at the southbound side of the M5. There is a lane closure and recovery work taking place after an earlier vehicle fire between Wellington and Tiverton, and the southbound side of the M5 elsewhere partially blocked to an accident.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 11:31 is the time. Well, let's get straight to your calls. What do you make of what this has been announced by Reform? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Paul is in Southampton, has done just that. Paul, good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Morning.
How's the holiday?
Oh, everyone teases me. I do like a summer holiday. What can I say? Paul, what do you make of what was announced just now?
Well, it was more in my call was about what your guest, the statement your guest made.
Claire's got. You're not happy with Claire?
Well, no, she made a false statement. It's incorrect.
Okay.
She said that we never had the ships that could take these people off these boats.
Yeah.
And we do. They're called landing craft. We got about 16 of them.
Okay.
And 8 of them can carry tanks and IFVs, and the other 8, I think it's 8 of each, that can carry up to 40 to 50 fully combated soldiers.
Right, so they can, okay. So basically, you get the people onto these big boats, and then you put them onto the landing craft when you get near shore. Landing craft, there you go. Thank you very much. Off you toddle. Not a problem anymore. Ta-ra, here's a bottle of water and a sarnie.
Yeah, well, you don't even have to get big boats. You just get, because when they go up to these dinghies, they just drop the front bow, and because the bow drops.
And put the dinghy on it.
Well, you put the dinghy on, or tell them to get off the dinghy, get on the boat, and then you pull up the bow, and then you go into shore. It's a landing craft designed to hit the beach, drop the front, and say get off.
And if the people start jumping in the water, what do you do?
Well, why are they going to jump? Where are they going to go? You just get a fish hook and drag them back in. But they won't jump in the water because they don't know where they're going. If you spin the landing craft round a couple of times,
do you know what? I'm rather liking your work, Paul, but I did have quite a big row with Ben Habib, did I not, a little while ago about, what would you do if they jumped in the water? Paul, very interesting. You're military, I'm guessing, or ex-military?
No, I'm not. I actually worked with a guy from St Kitts, and he came over, and he was a helmsman.
And he was explaining it all. There you are.
Landing craft.
There you are. Very interesting. Well, I'm going to say, this is my incisive political analysis I'm going to give now to Claire. No. See, you can.
Grown up.
No, this is the thing. It's nothing. This is not beyond the wit of man, this stuff.
And where are the landing crafts at the moment? Where are they deployed?
Buy some! Listen, seriously, rather than taxing me to put someone up in an asylum hotel, buy some sodding landing craft and send them home. I'm sorry, it's like, even if we haven't got the money for it, it's cheaper than having these people live in our country for years and years. Oh, Claire, seriously, we're in danger of falling out here, love. Barry is in Norwich. Hello, Barry. Help me, Barry.
Good morning, Julia. I'd just like to say your speech before the news, I think you speak for the majority of the country, and your guest, Claire Muldoon. If you'd like
Claire Muldoon. Claire Pearson.
Claire Muldoon, if you'd like to explain to all the young girls that have been raped and sexually assaulted by illegal immigrants and why you think they should stay here.
That may be a bit extreme, even for an awful lot of policies. OK, I think we'll have to drop some of that because some of that is not stuff that we could put on there. Barry, if your recordings just jumped, Barry, what do you make? Do you think that the policy that Reform have announced would work?
I think Nigel Farage and Reform should get together with Restore because we do not need two parties of the right.
What about the Tories?
Well, the Tories are not Tories, are they? They're Liberal Democrats disguised as Tories. Yeah.
Well, they certainly were for a long time. Do you think that's the case of the ones who were people like Kemi?
The problem with Kemi is I think she's the right person at the wrong time. Yeah?
Interesting.
I just don't think people are going to forget 14 years of Conservative rule just like that.
Yeah, when virtually every problem we're trying to deal with is something that either happened or has not been dealt with by them in that time. OK, interesting. And what do you make of Andy Burnham's efforts so far? Because he went to the White Cliffs of Dover and he sorted everything out. He's going to be relentless. Job done, Barry.
This is what I wanted to ring up about. Hallelujah, yeah? There is a God, and he lived in Manchester. Yeah, right. All this time he's been hiding up, and he's come down on his white horse, and he's got a sword out, and he's going to say all he's got. And these illegal migrants are sitting, standing at Dover, and they've gone, no, we're not coming no more. Andy Burnham's there. Of course he's going to stop. Yeah, he's going to be relentless.
Relentless, and he's going to do things differently. That's the thing. Everything Andy Burnham's going to do, he's going to do differently because no one's ever thought of it before. Barry, I share your pessimism on that front and your cynicism. Barry, thank you very much indeed. It's 11:36. Very quick break. Then we're going to be talking to Home Affairs commentator Danny Shaw. Wonder what he makes of what Reform have just announced, and indeed some other big stories as well. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, Home and Common Sense. 11:38 is the time. Well, let's talk to our next guest now, Home Affairs commentator Danny Shaw. Also, a former advisor to Yvette Cooper when she was Shadow Home Secretary. Danny Shaw, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Julia.
Always good to talk to you. No, obviously, I wanted to talk to you about some of the other big stories involving, early release of foreign criminals and that. But I must get your thoughts on what reform have just announced. The use of Nigel Farage about basically, they say under maritime law it's fine, practically it's fine. Basically, they're going to, intercept these channel boats in the middle of the channel instead of bring them to Britain, where they're going to be given a house and free whatever yoga lessons. Going to just take them straight back to France. They'd like to deliver them to the authorities. If the authorities in France don't want them, won't play ball, then they'll just take them straight back to the beaches they came from. What's not to like?
Well, I would say I think it's worth exploring it.
Oh.
And that might come as a surprise.
I
think the worst thing that we could do, and the last thing we should do, is just sort of dismiss an idea out of hand before exploring whether it's possible, whether it's feasible, whether it's practical. My sense is that the French would just, absolutely refuse to take people back. And at the end of the day, you'll end up with hundreds of people on a boat near the French coast. And, what you're going to do, occupying the Royal Navy's time when actually the Royal Navy has got probably better things to do.
Has it got better things to do, though? And as things used to say, what do we have a Royal Navy for other than protecting our borders?
Well, I mean, there's protecting borders from stopping small boats with people who are illegally trying to get into the country is one thing.
Terrorists.
Which is very important, Julie. I'm not saying it isn't. But there's another thing, which is the threats that our country faces are, on a much bigger security front from Russian state threats, Iranian state threats, and all the rest of it. So I'm not sure the Royal Navy really want to spend loads of their time occupied by this, but I don't want to dismiss an idea out of hand. I would rather look at whether it's practical, whether it's possible, whether there's a way in which it could be made to work, and if it can, then fine, give it a chance. I have my doubts.
Your old boss, Yvette Cooper, I know you don't work for her anymore, but I mean, she wouldn't be keen. I remember once asking her about, about borders, and she talks a good game when she was Home Secretary herself about, being in favour of borders. But actually, when it comes to the number of asylum seekers, the number of people we should take to this country, I asked her once, well, give me a vague idea of the numbers we're looking at. Was it 10,000, 100,000, 500,000, a million, 10 million? Answer came there, none.
Well, I don't think you're going to get an answer like that.
Why not?
On a straight question. Well, you can't put a number. You can't put a number on it. I mean, in an ideal world, we would only take people who are going to benefit our country in terms of the economy, filling gaps that we need in the labour market, or who are going to study at universities and are then going to, go back and be more qualified, or are genuinely fleeing persecution. Obviously, in an ideal world, but you can't put a number on that, Julia. I mean, you would have a number that's sustainable. That works within the parameters of housing, education, healthcare, and so on. That's what you would have. I don't know what that number is, so that's why I would imagine, for the same reasons as Yvette, not going to give you.
Yeah, if you can't get it from a few million to a few 100,000, I think that's the problem for the British people.
Well, obviously it's not millions. We
well, you say
that,
obviously it's not millions.
10,000 or 20,000.
Over the years, as we know, the most conservative estimate is that we have more than 1 million people living here illegally. I would be very surprised, given our abject lack of knowledge of who is in the country and who is not, is that actually it's probably in the region of 2 million plus people who living here have no right to be here, overstayed visas or entered here illegally. We have no idea who they are. So it is in the millions, actually.
It could be. Look, it's less about the numbers and it's the impact it's having on communities. Whether it's 1 million or 2 million, it's the impact that it has. in terms of criminality, in terms of pressure on social services, housing and healthcare and so on.
But then there is about the numbers, because if there's there's one person here, there's a million, it's still, they still need somewhere to live, they're still taking jobs, they're still queuing in front of us.
We could spend all our day arguing whether it's 1 million or 2 million. That's not really helpful.
No, but I'm just saying that the numbers do make it. That's why this isn't, which is why it's fascinating.
Because there are too many.
When Labour are saying, look, the numbers are down, they've gone down 40-odd% since last year and everything. But again, by this time of year, you never know how much that's down to the weather. Or again, if I was a legal migrant, I'd have been in Spain getting myself an amnesty by pretending to have been there for more than 5 months. You'd be crazy to be trying to get to Britain at the current time. You'd be better off going to Spain, wouldn't you? So when that policy's been shut down, then they're all going to come back to Britain. So, the thing is, though, the numbers are so huge, that is the issue for people. Let's talk about foreign criminals as well, because interesting story on the front of the Daily Express today, 1,500 foreign criminals are currently living in the UK in asylum homes, paid for by us. And there are 20,000 convicted foreign criminals in the UK at all. Again, 20,000 too many. But we're actually paying for more than 1,500 convicted foreign criminals. They've been convicted in this country. They've served time, and they've not yet been deported, and we're paying for them. I think most people are just utterly bewildered that these people are still in the country.
Well, it sticks in the craw, doesn't it? And I don't want to be paying for them through my taxes, and I'm sure no one does. The situation is that there are some people that it is very difficult to remove because they don't have the documents to show what country they're from, or the receiving country won't take them, or it's simply just unsafe. It's so unsafe that you can't remove them to that country. Now, I think the government is trying to make efforts to speed up deportations, and I think their record over the past 2 years actually is pretty good, certainly compared with what
is it
before.
Most people have left, they've either been paid to leave or they left voluntarily.
Look, if you pay people a small amount of money to facilitate their return and to go back to their country, that frankly is saving money for the taxpayer. Again, it's not something that I like doing, and not something I expect you to like doing.
No, and there's some practicalities there. I get that in terms, but the reality is the number of deportations is tiny compared to the actual number.
It's not enough, Julia. I agree, but to give the government, Labour government, some credit, they have ramped up the number of staff they've got working on this. The number of deportations and removals has increased since the previous government was in. It's not enough. There's more work to be done, but actually getting assurances and getting agreements with foreign countries, doing some diplomatic work behind the scenes will help all that.
Well, paying the French and they're not doing it. Can I also ask you about this early release scheme? Because, again, this is something that under Keir Starmer it happened in September 2024, his first year of office. It would have happened whether the Tories or Labour had been in. We know that. The shortage of prison spaces, it's a long-term issue, happened largely under the Tories, again, under the austerity years, the cutting back of spending, increased sentencing, but not enough prison cells built to allow for that. We've got the prospect of more of that happening. Andy Burnham, as soon as he came into office, asked about it, and he was saying very clearly, look, I'm going to look into it. I want it all paused. It's all due to start early September. Really not that far away, just a few weeks away. But there's a lot of talk over the weekend, well, OK, it won't be rapists, won't be allowed out, but people who've committed manslaughter will. You've got to argue about the thought process there. But they're now arguing, the police are now saying they're concerned that so many people who have not been rehabilitated, most people aren't from prison, returning to the streets. We're already having more crime for all the people who don't get the sentences up to a year because they're still out and able to commit those crimes, because we're not having anyone going to prison for less than a year now. Again, an insane policy in my view. But getting all these people out much earlier of prison, they're just going to be completely overwhelmed, and it's going to mean less policing of the streets and more crime for the rest of us.
But I think this is a point that has been lost in this whole debate about early release, is that it is putting strain on police, and it will put continuing strain on the police because there are more offenders, and particularly offenders who are at risk of committing further crimes, who are in the community rather than locked up in prison. Now, it's very difficult to quantify the extent to which that's going to impact policing. It's really difficult to say, well, that means that certain neighbourhood crimes are going unsolved, or it's taking longer for them to respond to your burglary or car being stolen. But it will absolutely have an effect. The whole criminal justice system is joined up. if you don't have enough prison places, then that creates more impact on probation and policing in the community. That may mean, in turn, more crimes being committed, which people going back to prison. Yeah. That's creating stresses on the courts, which we know are completely rammed full with people waiting 3 or 4 years for their day in court, and so it goes on. What is the answer to it? The answer probably is sustained investment, but as well, I would say, I would want to see actually police given more powers to issue on the spot cautions to offenders, good old fashioned police caution. There are some offenders, there are some particularly young offenders and people who are not used to being in trouble with the police who will respond very positively to a stern warning from a police officer, your criminal record, caution, but it's quick and
clips
it can be dealt
around the
with
ear.
quickly.
That's what we need to go back to. Danny Shaw, we'll have to leave it there. Really interesting to talk to you today. Thank you very much, Home Affairs commentator there. Claire Pearsall, quick reaction.
Early release schemes. I mean, who in their mind thinks it's a good way forward?
Tories and Labour, apparently.
Yeah, and this is where I diverge from it. I just think it's the wrong idea.
Nightingale prisons, build more prisons, urgent prisons, simple as that. By the way, Nigel Farage is in that press conference, still ongoing. Nigel Farage, he's been asked about Rupert Lowe's offer of a deal. We asked you about that earlier in the show. He has said, as Nigel Farage response, it was a sort of response on social media last night, but his response today in person was, I'm prepared to do things and make sacrifices if I believe it's in the national interest. I would do anything I could to have a sane centre-right alliance at the next general election. I don't ditch my friends and my allies, whether it's Suella Braverman or Posh George. If, his man gave him money, obviously, if it was an offer of a deal, it came in a very unusual way, getting the public side of it. I have responded to it with a very open mind, but I'm certainly not going to be ditching people that I consider allies and a great asset. So, don't think it's happening just yet. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. Up next, going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about, are you surviving with the heat? Up to 34 degrees in some parts of the country today. And indeed the ongoing drought. Promise of rain this week. Apparently not hitting certainly where we are in the far south. But with more forest fires and the like, is this just the future? Well, let's talk about it with the non-hysteric, but knowledgeable soul on this, Ross Clark, author of Not Zero. He's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, Home of Common Sense is what we call ourselves, and you always get common sense from an ex-guest. Ross Clark, author of Not Zero, How an Irrational Target Will Impoverish You, Help China and Won't Even Save the Planet, and many, many other books as well. Very good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, look, I've been away in 36 degrees in Cyprus. That got to be a bit too hot. We've had temperatures higher than that here in the UK. Got another bit of a heat wave today, going back down to sort of, the high 20s, a bit more bearable, but the drought continues for most of us. You can see the state of everyone's grass. Everything's looking terrible. We've had forest fires. I mean, basically, we've got an awful lot of warnings. The UN Secretary-General, as usual, we're talking about this is the end of the world as we know it if we don't change. What are people thinking? Maybe more drilling for gas and oil in the North Sea. This is just going to bring about our certain death very, very soon. Is any of that true, Ross?
Right, well, let's put this month's weather or last month's weather into context.
Wait a minute, it's weather.
Yes,
it's climate. No, it's weather.
Well, yeah, I'm going to explain the difference between that. But I mean, last month was the driest driest July on record. It was the hottest July on record as well, I understand. But put that in context, we are living through an increasing trend towards higher summer temperatures, higher temperatures throughout the year. That's certainly true. We are getting more extreme heat in Britain. But on the rainfall side, I mean, while July was the driest July on record, that's actually a little bit against the trend in recent years, which has been to slightly wetter summers and a little bit more rainfall. We've been having quite a bit more rainfall in winter, a little bit more rainfall in summer, and we've been trending towards drier springs. So it's a sort of interesting pattern, that, but it's certainly not true when people say, this summer drought, it's a sign of the way we're going and we're all going to be like North Africa in future. No, it's actually, this summer is actually unusual relative to recent ones.
But that's interesting. But also, when people say on record, since records began, that was about 1880s. There's been quite a lot of weather before then.
Well, yeah, the previous driest July, by the way, was 1911, so there's nothing unusual about dry summer weather. Occasionally we do get these Mediterranean summers. They've always been part of our climate, but they are now hotter than they used to be. That is.
Yes, I mean, a lot of us, I sorted out the garden, nice patio, lovely patio furniture, got the big umbrella, quite looking forward to it. Bit too hot. I don't think us Brits are often made for a lot of this stuff. And again, a lot of us were thinking, might actually get some aircon fitted for next year if this is what's going to carry on. But the reality is, again, weather changes. Climate is over a 30-year period as opposed to weather. We are seeing warming. But whether or not it is man-made, entirely man-made, a bit man-made or not, I mean, the reality is whether any of that is true, we're also coming out of an ice age, are we not?
Well, I would actually accept that most of the warming trend in the last 50 years is down to more greenhouse gases, but not just more greenhouse gases, also the reduction in particulate pollution, which has made Britain quite a lot more sunnier, because we
need a bit more smog.
We used to have a lot of smoke, a lot of dust. We still got dust, I suppose. We used to have a lot of coal soot particles, and what that does, they act as a sort of nucleus around which clouds form. So, the removal of those soot particles from the air, which is a very good thing generally, has actually increased the sunshine and
but the thing is, I mean,
temperatures.
We managed to cope between Monday and Tuesday. There'll be about sort of a 5 or 6 or 8 degree difference. We managed to cope with that. A lot of us paid to go on holiday somewhere warmer than where we live, and yet we're looking at, on average, their prediction, the realistic prediction of maybe, we've got a degree of 1 degree of warning since the industrial age, well worth it for the benefits of the industrial age, if that is the cause. I don't personally accept that necessarily is. And maybe half a degree or 1 degree over the next century. I mean, that's not going to make the difference between, coping with life and not coping with life, is it?
Yeah, well, the natural variation between summer days and between summers is still far greater than the underlying trend of temperatures, which, as you say, is about sort of 1.5 degrees over the past 150 years. Whereas the difference between the warmest and the coldest July might be sort of 5-10 degrees or something.
Exactly. And also, before we go, forest fires as well. Lots of news about forest fires. Well, if you have drought conditions, that's what you get. But again, most forest fires are as a result of either arson or silly accidents. They are a lot of undergrowth that hasn't been burnt away because we've got this sort of rewilding projects. And there are actually fewer wildfires this year and in the last few years than there have been for many years.
Well, globally, there is a downward trend in the amount of land being burnt in wildfires. This year, take continental Europe as a whole, this has been an unusually low year for wildfires. I know that's not been come to consolation to people of France and Spain who have had a very particularly bad year. But yeah, it's partly a consequence of the weather, but it's also driven by changes in land use. And there's a lot of farming practices have changed, with farming land less intensely and letting, rewilded stretches. We're planting more woodland. France has this target of planting 50 million extra trees by 2030. Very good from an environmental point of view in many ways, but it does increase the risk of large wildfires.
Yeah.
And we're not clearing the vegetation as owners of woodland used to do.
All those things that used to work. And then, of course, you've got basically dry kindling, haven't you? Ross Clark, always so good to talk to you. Thank you so much, author of Net Zero. Quick question, quick point, from Claire Pearsall. Sorry, Claire.
I think that we're all sitting here looking at the benefits of air conditioning when you're looking at sort of temperatures of 34 degrees. Our houses hold in that heat, and they're boiling.
Homes in Italy and France and Spain are designed for. Our homes are designed to keep heat in. No, exactly the opposite. But again, this is not beyond the wit of man.
Of course it's not.
It's almost like the Industrial Revolution gave us this ability to do this.
Shocker.
I know.
We learned.
But it's incredible. I mean, you would not... All the things we discussed, you'd never hear any of that on the BBC because they're so busy trying to tell us we're all going to die. I mean, it's genuinely hilarious. Anyway, plenty more to come in the next hour. I'm going to get to more of your calls. We're going to have former Rear Admiral Chris Parry on that reform policy on the Channel boats. We'll hear what he has to say.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. It's 2 minutes past 12. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is fabulous to have your company. If you've missed anything from the show, go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. I can stop saying it to you. Coming up, we're going to be discussing whether or not Nigel Farage should strike a deal with Restore Britain after vowing to build a broad coalition that unites the right. In a press conference that he's been giving along with Zia Youssef over basically promising to use the Royal Navy to make the channel, they say, impenetrable to small boat migrants, basically picking them up middle of the channel and taking them back and depositing them back in France, whether the French like it or not. Nigel Farage said he is prepared to do things and make sacrifice if he believes it's in the national interest. He said, I would do anything I could to have a sane centre-right alliance at the next general election. But one of the 5 conditions that Rupert Lowe of Restore did give for a sort of deal was he basically no anyone who used to serve in the last Tory government involved in the next government if there was a reform government. But he says, I don't ditch my friends and my allies, whether that's Suella Braverman or Posh George. Anyway, we'll see about that. We'll talk to guests about that later in the hour. We're also going to be talking about non-Muslim officers and staff working at West Midlands Police have been invited to fast during Ramadan as an act of solidarity. Why don't they ask Muslims to not fast as an act of solidarity? I mean, why? Well, that's outrageous, you might say. Why? Why is it any more outrageous? Also, the FIFA boss, Gianni Infantino, is facing growing calls to quit over the scandal surrounding his shabby deal to sell off the World Cup to the highest bidder. I mean, he's been selling off the World Cup to the highest bidder the whole way through his 10 years tenure. But Wales went it first, and now England have said basically will not back him if he runs, as he's planning to next year, to keep that FIFA presidency. I think his reign is going to be over. Who's going to be the next one, though? Is it going to be any better? Anyway, joining me, I'm delighted to say, for the whole show has been Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Got to be honest with you, though, unusually for Claire, she's been pretty unsound on the boats issue today. She's upset with me. She's going to keep me under the desk. In terms of the announcement we've had from Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef about turning the boats back, basically just pick them up, the Royal Navy, and then send them back to France, whether France likes it or not. But you're not convinced that's going to happen?
No, I'm not. And there are many.
You used to work at the Home Office.
Yeah. I mean, I don't object to protecting our border and securing it. I don't object to putting people in detention if they shouldn't be in this country. And certainly if they're a foreign national offender, they need to leave. They need to go. So I'm not loose on immigration in that respect. But I do think that this announcement is so slack on detail.
Well, we'll see what the detail is in the document. We haven't got the document here, and they're only handing it out at the press conference. Couldn't get it in advance, unfortunately. And also, of course, we're asking people to get in touch on this, announced today, but also Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe offering that reform pact to unite the patriotic right. But it's a public one. It's got 5 provisos, one of which, as a caller pointed out earlier, is something that Nigel Farage would never agree to. I mean, he would look terrible if he did agree to it, basically dropping anyone from a future reform cabinet. You know, again, polls aren't looking good for that happening right now. And we've got Restore taking 8 to 9% of a vote in a number of local elections, mayoral elections, by-elections, and whether or not that could be an issue for the future for the reform. Should Nigel Farage agree to a pact? I've been asking you. Tell us why he should, tell us why he shouldn't. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged the national rate and text cost 1 standard network rate message. Coming up at 1:30, we are going to be talking to Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, CBE, former Royal Navy Commander, big friend of the show, as you know, also used to be in reform, no longer in reform. Want to know what he thinks about this policy. Also going to be talking, as I say, about the FIFA boss, Gianni Infantino. Right now, delighted to welcome Philip Kisley back to the show, Senior Fellow at the New Cultural Forum, to talk about, well, I suppose, all things mad and woke and terrifying. Good afternoon to you, Philip.
Hi, Julia. Great to see you.
So much I want to talk to you about. I mean, I don't even know where to start, but can we just start, I suppose, we start with, first of all, West Midlands Police Force. Not a police force I've got much keenness for anyway, after their treatment of Israeli fans, the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, and their decision to basically, after being threatened, Muslim community leaders went, oh, basically there's going to be violence against a load of Israelis and Jews who turn up to come and watch a match against Aston Villa last November. So what we're going to do is we're going to ban them. as opposed to the people who are going to commit crimes and threatening violence, none of whom, by the way, have been arrested, interestingly. But so they haven't got very good form of this. But West Midlands Force says they've basically non-Muslim police staff, police officers and backroom staff have been invited to fast during Ramadan to show as an act of solidarity with their Muslim colleagues. So the West Midlands Association of Muslim Police said colleagues can take part in a fast for the day during the religious festival to raise money for charity. And the police said the practice helps officers understand the significance of Ramadan for Muslim, not just colleagues, but also residents. Nick Timothy, the Shadow Justice Secretary of the Tories, has said this was wholly inappropriate and said that they should scrap these sort of policies where public services think constantly about nothing but equality and diversity. What do you make of this?
Well, I think that word solidarity is really frightening, isn't it? Yeah. Because it has all sorts of political connotations for me. And if you tag it onto Islam, you immediately make the very short leap to Islamism, and that's what is happening here. This is encroachment, isn't it? This is it's framed in solidarity and see how people feel, live their experience. But the reality is, if you don't do this, then are you Islamophobic?
Yes.
Oh dear, are you racist? All of that kind of stuff. So this is how this creep happens in the public sector and education and all of those places. It starts with this kind of language and then it changes to something much more sinister. But what we have here is Islam taking over, essentially, don't we? This is this is what you need to. This is
but who's pushing this?
Because this is your future.
But who's pushing? I mean, again, nearly always it ends up being white liberal women who, the landlord women, who say, this would be a nice thing to do. But we've even had pressure, haven't we? We've seen a lot of our prisons. Basically, all the food is now, is halal, and, no pork served, because basically you're going to get beaten if it is served. Again, I go to a Muslim country and they are not serving, pork, sausages or bacon. Fine, I'm in a Muslim country. I've accepted that when I go there. I don't say, I demand to have pork if people in the kitchen don't want to handle pork. That would be rude and inappropriate. However, I don't see why, because someone at the table is either a Muslim or a Jew or any other religion or a vegan or a vegetarian or a pescatarian, why that in any way needs to impact what I choose to eat or not eat. I find that I just find if someone's a vegetarian or a vegan and comes to my home, good luck, I would say. You might.
Mine too.
I mean, I've got to be honest. I think it's spare ribs today would be my thought. But I just find it's such an imposition that we should bend to. What you do, that's absolutely fine. I'll make sure there's a nut roast for you. But in no way is that going to stop me eating what I want to eat.
No. But I mean, this works on two levels, doesn't it? It's contextual and it's specific. I think contextual is the fact that we've had asymmetrical multiculturalism for 30 or 40 years, in which we put every other culture before our own, in which we demonize our own culture, which we demonize even the color of our skin, and we certainly demonize men. So all of that kind of stuff is the broader context. But I think specific to this is the public sector equality duty, which puts DEI at the heart of everything they do. Every breath they take, they have to think about equality, diversity and inclusion. And that is the problem. We need to strip our services of all of this stuff. We need to just dump that immediately. And we say, no, look, this is Britain and specifically this is England. Our kind of inclusion is around our flag. Our inclusion. We want you if you will be British. We want you to, we will include you if you behave yourself, essentially. And you put our culture first. In every other country apart from the Anglosphere, that is what happens. You can't imagine in Argentina or Brazil people saying, my God, the flag, it's making people racist, we need to dump it immediately. It's these comparisons that we need to make. But like I say, it's contextual and it's specific, and we need to attack both of those points.
No, very, very good point. Can I also talk to you about Boy George? Boy George is not somebody I hold a candle for. Karma Chameleon is possibly the worst song ever made and haunted my entire teenage years. B, a man who somehow still has a career after basically, imprisoning somebody in his home, handcuffing him to a radiator. I mean, I'm not quite sure why that person has been completely rehabilitated in public life, apparently not an issue, but there we are. I also disagree with him fundamentally on his defence of trans rights when they trample all over women's rights and safety. So he's not someone to hold a gun for. However, very, very sound when it comes to speaking up for our Jewish fellow citizens and for Israel. And he wanted to record "We Will Dance Again," a cover of a song that about pro-Israeli song. Described, of course, in all the news articles about this controversial. I don't think it is controversial actually, only for people who just hate Jews. Got to be honest with you, it's about the victims of a massacre on October the 7th. So I don't know what the hell is controversial about that. But basically, he's had to split from the manager of his record label because basically his Tony Pontius didn't want anything to do with it. And he said he was gutless, and he says, I'll live with the consequences of being open about my support for Jews and for Israel in the wake of October the 7th. And I've got to be honest with you, all credit. I salute the guy.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, Julia, where we can't trust, we can't choose our heroes. And on this particular instance, he is heroic. I agree with you on all the rest of the stuff, especially Karma Chameleon, my God. But there is something here where he is so brave, he's so heroic. But I think it speaks more about... One, about society, as I said before, it's a similar kind of point that I would make. But two, it's about the sector. And the music industry is totally captured by pro-Palestinian nutters. I'm fairly close to the industry. I know quite a bit about it. And so many artists are cancelled because they are Israeli, they are Jewish, they are seen to be Zionist. Yeah. So all he is doing, all he is saying really is, I'm against rape and murder and atrocity.
Controversial.
It's as simple as that. Controversial, yeah. But the response to that tells us that we have a real problem with lumpen Jew hate in this country, and we need to do something about it. But more than that, Julia, it's the people who before now we would have seen to be as progressive, as arty, as liberal. They are the real fascists. And as I say, the music industry, the creative industries more broadly, is in a terrible situation at the moment because it is populated by little fascists who close everything down and ruin people in terms of...
And yeah, exactly, literally try and ruin people's careers, but also people who spout on and on and on about diversity. The one thing they don't ever accept is diversity of thought. Let me also ask you about, very sad news, very worrying news last Friday. I'm hoping we'll speak to him tomorrow on the show. A high-profile basically a challenge to these clinical trial of puberty blockers, which was, I don't know why, endorsed by Hilary Cass in her review of the Tavistock Clinic, but the Pathways trial run by researchers at King's College London on Friday, basically. The trial, the appeal against that, basically trying to stop that going ahead on the basis that you cannot have a trial of drugs which damage children's bodies, where it has no beneficial health benefits for these children. The children can't possibly agree to it, and parents can't possibly agree to it. It's unethical, which it clearly is. That legal challenge was rejected by the High Court. That trial's going to go ahead, and as of today, they're going to start recruiting more than 220 children aged between 11 and 16 years old to take these drugs, which lead children down it. Normally, very typically, irreversible path towards basically permanently damaging their bodies. This is just an abomination, isn't it? I'm sorry, but this is Mengele in the Nazi war concentration camps territory, as far as I'm concerned, experimenting on children.
We're back to square one, aren't we? A year ago, a couple of years ago, I thought, oh God, we won the gender war. We can put this lunacy to bed. We will look back on this period in 30 years and say it was an instance of mass madness. The madness of crowds, as Douglas Murray would say. But now we're back, and this is just simply evil. This is child abuse. We had that term, didn't we, back then, which I think we should bring back, which is Frankensteining children. This is what this is about. This is paraphilias. This is adult sexuality being imposed on children.
And a government allowing it to go through, by the way, that want to ban under 16-year-olds from buying energy drinks.
Yeah,
so no turkey twizzlers at school in the canteen, no energy drinks, but we'll just give you a drug that will completely change your body forever.
Well, this is what happens with identity politics, isn't it? You know, you become blind, you become stupid, you think about particular people as heroic, you think about narratives as being heroic, and then you will shoehorn everything to fit that.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen? These children are going to grow up with huge regrets, huge physical disabilities, and you and I know
infertile, no sexual gratification.
Well, this will end in suicides. This will end in death, because it always does, and that's where we are. They have blood on their hands. They have it already, but we can put it in the future. It's in the post.
Yeah,
Julie.
and again, there have been thousands of children who've taken these puberty blockers. There's been no proper follow-up. I wonder why. Why not actually just follow up the kids who've actually had it already? This was a horrible little chink of light for the and they're child abusers. That's what they are, to be able to carry on with puberty blockers. And I'm afraid this is going to go down a horrible path. It's very sad. Look, to cheer ourselves up, let's talk about one final topic, because I have to say, reading this story while I was away, I mean, it's just beautiful, and yet also quite sinister in its own way. And this is a guy called Jason Arde. He became the youngest black professor at Cambridge University some years back, feted in numerous news articles, magazines, you know, the BBC. I mean, there's numerous articles. I mean, this amazing young guy, an amazing backstory. He was mute to the age of 12. He was illiterate, pretty much illiterate to the age of 18. Then he started learning. He got a PhD. He became his youngest professor. He apparently raised £5.5 million for charity with ultra marathons. I mean, you know, 30 marathons in 30 days, wasn't it? I mean, this man is just superhuman. I mean, all the different things that he's done. And he said he's claimed, though, he's faced terrible racism, and that at one time someone came in with a knife and a pig's head was sent to his family home. There's been a knife attack. No record of any of this stuff, by the way. No record of literally anything that he's claimed. Latest claim today is glorious. This has emerged that he was actually a participant in that very famous, groundbreaking BBC show 7 Up, where they followed children from 7 years old. Every 7 years, another thing, and they followed them really closely to see how their lives develop. And they had loads of children, and it's an absolutely fascinating, groundbreaking series. Thing is, the first original series began way before he was actually born, so he wasn't in that one. And there was another series, and he said he was in that. Well, he said he was in one of the series. That one also had happened at a time when he wasn't the right age. And the BBC has confirmed that this Jason Arde was definitely not involved. Again and again and again, this young man has said things which are easily, provably not true or unverified. He's a super athlete. No one's heard of any of his sporting achievements. No one can work out where all this money that he raised has gone. He says it's all been kept quiet. Now, biggest questions have been about plagiarism, that basically his PhD, the thing that got him his job, that the PhD basically was, the allegation is that there was plagiarism on a grand scale, and that therefore he has no right to that PhD, and therefore, of course, no right to professorship. And yet we've got numerous people, Cambridge academics included, writing to defend him. They've got the Good Law Project, of course we have, Julian Moore and others, literally defending this guy to the hilt, saying this is just racism, this is just, you know, an attack on this man. But I mean, as Toby Young wrote wonderfully at the weekend, this may just be a Sacha Baron Cohen creation, because it's the only thing that would explain this. What do you make of this extraordinary phenomenon of this man's amazing rise from nothing to this highly esteemed role, when there isn't a single bit of evidence for pretty much anything he's ever said or done?
Well, can I just add one more thing to that? He claimed that he ran a marathon with a broken leg.
Oh, yes. No,
well.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, and I've missed out something else as well. Not only did he have a broken leg for the last few marathons, he also finished his PhD studies, his the oral exam, only 2 weeks after being operated on for a brain tumour.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'm sorry, I can't believe I missed that crucial fact out as well.
Not many people know this, Julia, but I appeared on Mastermind with a severed head and got every single question right. It wasn't documented, but if you don't believe me, you're an anti-Hungarian bigot. Okay, this is where we are. Okay, so I talked before about heroes and heroic narratives.
Yeah.
This is what the sector desperately want. They want a black hero and they can frame him around an heroic narrative, you know, they can build this heroic narrative around him, or he's done it, they won't question any of it because to do so will make their worldview just crumble. So all of this stuff is quite kind of entertaining and quite fun. But if you think about it, right, this is Cambridge, that there are bound to be similar people in similar positions in every other university in the country. So students are getting a substandard education from people who are not up to it, who are simply there because of the colour of their skin or their sexuality. This actually adds up to a sector scandal. This is something big that if people...
And someone else, by the way, who did deserve that job, didn't get it.
Of course, yeah. So this, and you know, I've got previous here. You know, I was cancelled from the sector, so I know all about this, and I've been reading about it with kind of delight, really. It's the people who should be there are not there. The people who absolutely shouldn't be there are being shipped in like there's no tomorrow. There's a reason why our research is in the toilet. There's a reason why kids are going into university stupider than they are. Coming out of university stupider than when they go in. It's because the system is in freefall. And again, it comes back to this notion of identity politics. It is about narratives. It's about heroes. It's about oppressed people taking on the system and winning. What it's not about is education, research, and outreach. And we have a massive problem because of that, because you must take my word for this. This is happening in every institution in the country.
Exactly. It's quite a funny story, but actually it's taking a job from someone else, and it's an absolute, I mean, it's an absolute insult to those who are getting into 50 grand's worth of debt to get an education. Although this guy was certainly reading some of the prose he's written. I mean, he's frankly barely literate as far as I can tell. Certainly can't spell. And apparently that's he's dyslexic. But again, how many other issues? Philip, you know, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. We've covered a lot of ground. Great to have you on the show. It always is. Thank you so much, Claire Pearsall. There's lots to talk about now. But the Jason Ardo case here is absolutely true. Again, Toby Young wrote this brilliant Free Speech Union famously brilliant piece this weekend, basically saying congratulations to Sacha Baron Cohen on his latest fantastic character, because it's the only thing that explains this.
It is, and it does sound like a skit for a reality TV show. See how far you can blag before you get found out. And
no, we don't know if things aren't true. We just say there's no evidence for some of the things that have been claimed.
But there should be evidence when you're looking at people's qualifications or sporting achievements. There will always be a record. So why isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's just, I just don't want to be sued. But it is just extraordinary. And again, what other checks are being made? What other, I mean, you know, and how many other people is happening? And again, if someone is promoted because they suit a certain narrative and a diversity, equity and inclusion thing, when someone is promoted who's not actually up to the job, you're actually doing people a disservice. I never wanted to get a job as a woman because, tick. You can't, you know, you've got the right, you know, genitals. I mean, normally that would be an offence because you want people who are good at the job, who you deserve to be there on merit. The whole point of not being racist, the whole point of not being sexist, not being homophobic, is that you don't not give someone a job because they have those traits. Like that doesn't mean you give someone a job because they tick some boxes for you. But it is fascinating when all this stuff emerged. How extraordinary that the lanyard class immediately go, this is outrageous attack on a young man, you know, and it's like, guys, you are defending what may turn out to be the indefensible. But the fact that there are now already quite a few things where there would be clearly a record, and when people, you know, I've never accidentally told someone I've been on a major groundbreaking television show that I wasn't on.
No.
Do you think could you mistake whether or not you had been on the BBC show 7 Up or not? I think I'd know if I had been.
I was going to say, but there'd be a record of it as well.
And they say, I mean, no one makes that mistake.
No.
And I think if I'd made $5.5 million for charity from my amazing athletic ability, well, that's never going to happen, is it? I mean, I think there might be some photos.
Precisely, and that's the thing. Or somebody else to verify it. Somebody completely independent that says, I was there when the big cheque was presented to the charity.
No,
nothing.
Apparently not. It's just extraordinary. This is going to go big egg on face.
It is.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe offering that reform pact. Will it happen, do you think not? I mean, Nigel Farage doesn't sound that keen on it, but he just wants a sane, as he said, I would do anything I could to have a sane centre-right alliance at the next general election. Would that, though, include restore a sane centre-right election? Who knows? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000. I'm going to take your calls up next. And then we are going to be talking to former Rear Admiral Chris Parry about what he makes of Reform's announcement about how they want to tackle the channel boats. I'm not sure why Reform, if they got elected, would have to tackle the channel boats, because, as we've already been hearing from Andy Burnham, he's promised to be relentless to deal with that issue. So that's already going to be solved, isn't it? Because when Andy Burnham says he's going to do things differently and he's going to be relentless, job done, according to most of the media, who don't actually expect anything to actually happen after someone makes a pledge. We'll take your calls up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. Thank you so much for joining me. 12:29 time. I'm going to get some calls in on the Reformed migration announcement about taking, basically using Royal Navy ships to take people back to the French shores, but also about this call from Restore's Rupert Lowe to unite the right. Just some breaking news on that. Rupert Lowe has just put out a statement on X. Remember, bear in mind, he did that 12-minute video yesterday urging Nigel Farage to form a pact. There were 5 principles he said that you'd have to stick to. Nigel Farage has basically said, he's prepared to do things and make sacrifices. He says, if I believe it's in the national interest, I don't ditch my friends, my allies. One of those requirements, which is described by Rupert Lowe actually as a principle, I'm not sure it's a principle, is that someone who worked at the last Tory government, so the likes of Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick and others couldn't be in any future Reform government. He says, I do not want to make private conversations public, but Farage has just done so at National Press Conference. During the press conference, Nigel Farage said that he'd said yesterday to Rupert Lowe, shall we have a call? Rupert Lowe says that's just a lie. He'd messaged him, we'll call later. He's received no call. This is like 13-year-old girls. So anyway, then I said, and then she said, and I said, then so then he said he was cool, and he didn't call, and I said, so I texted. Seriously, for the love of God, grow up, men. Grow the hell up. This is embarrassing. This is you're embarrassing yourselves, you're embarrassing your parties, and you're embarrassing the country. And the worst thing, you're embarrassing people who potentially want to vote for you because they would like to have a sane government in doing the right things. But this 13-year-old girl stuff has got to stop. Good grief. But he's basically saying, there are conditions and principles the overwhelming majority of the Reform membership and the wider country believe in. including no failed Conservative ministers. That's not a principle. It is disappointed that Nigel does not agree with all of that. And then he says his promise to, a message to the patriotic right is back, restore Britain. Does this sound like this was actually a genuine offer? Let's talk about that with Gareth, who's in Derbyshire. Gareth, what do you make of all of that?
Good morning. Yeah, it's dreadful, isn't it? It's
unbecoming.
I mean, it's not the making of a new government by any means.
No, I mean, it's embarrassing.
But I think what we've got here, Kemi Badenoch is very good, but obviously the Conservative Party are discredited.
Yeah.
So Reform seem to have a lot of secret money from outside sources. Could we actually have a transfer to Kemi Badenoch to Reform? Because I think that
Party
might be
transfer day.
Yeah, we need to offer a decent sum. I don't know. I think did this player from Aston Villa go for 138
Who
million?
are you giving the money to? Kemi Badenoch or the Tories? We'll buy your leader off you.
I don't know what you do, but the thing is, Kemi Badenoch, she's going to be struggling. I think I'm feeling sorry for her because she would be good on a better day, but the problem is with the Conservatives, people don't trust them.
You don't trust the party that was in office, but also, crucially, a hell of a lot of that party could happily wear a yellow rosette, couldn't they?
The Liberals are hiding under the carpet. If they were ever elected and some policies came up that we wanted to do some proper Conservative policies, the Liberals would come out of the hatch.
Yeah, and that's the issue, isn't it? Because actually, you know, they talked a good game in the 2019 general election and 2017, and actually they didn't deliver any of it.
No, they didn't.
Other than we got Brexit.
They lost the trust, and the thing is, they're not going to be electable for another decade. So I think Kemi needs to look for a transfer. I think put on some good terms.
Very interesting. I'm going to get the response of Claire Pearsall, who was just shaking her head then. Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor, but very much, apart from on this return to France issue, very sane.
I don't think you can just transfer over. I mean, we would all like to have
you met Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman?
I mean, my views on them are well known. But I don't think you can have this sort of Frankenstein party because it never works. People will always fall out with each other.
But they always do that anyway, but all parties that come out... Labour Party is full of, like, socialists and, you know, Blairites.
Well, I mean, there's more socialists in there now than there's ever been. I mean, I wouldn't trust any of those. And the Conservative Party is starting to look more conservative again. So I think that we are rebuilding we don't need to transfer out.
The majority of the British public are just centre-right. It's just that centre-right is now considered far-right and fascist.
It's ridiculous. I'll put that on my badge.
I mean, none of us have changed.
No.
None of us have changed. Just the party's just all shifted. The Tory party became sort of further left than Tony Blair. Let's go to Paul, who's on the line in Portsmouth. Paul, you want to talk about this reform policy. Basically, we get the Royal Navy, ship them back to France.
I do indeed, Claire. No, sorry.
No, don't worry. Claire, you're taking over. Come on, move over.
Yeah, so I love listening to your debate, both of you debating about what the Navy should
but she's wrong.
Can't do. I'm just a little bit on the opposite side in a sense from you, Julia. I believe that, yes, the Navy should be out there. We should be out there, you know, patrolling our border. Any boats are instantly intercepted. They're loaded onto the boat. They're taken to land.
Which land, France or Britain?
No, out to us. They're put straight away in the detention centre, and within 24/48 hours, they're back out, either back to where they come from, back to a country where we have agreements with.
Why not cut out the middleman and just send them back to France?
Well, I agree. I understand with like Claire's about, you know, the possible, you know, ramifications or difficulties in our relationship with France. I just thinking, just shipping back detention centres, out they go back again. I think if we start doing that, I think, because let's be honest, Rwanda, when it was being floated first, it was starting to have a little effect. And again, I think if we bring in Rwanda as well and have other agreements with other countries where we just ship these people out, I think it will have an effect.
I just one-way tickets back to Paris, I say. 12:35 is time. Huge call, huge thanks to Paul and all your callers. Thank you very much. Up next, delighted to say Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, former Royal Navy commander, will be in the studio. Tell us what he makes of Reform's plan. Will it work or not? That's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:38 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Claire Pearcell still with us, delighted to be joined in the studio now by Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, CBE, former Royal Navy Commander, friend of the show. Very good afternoon to you. Chris, you were in reform. You, like it would appear, many people over the years, a little bit of a, should we say, a disagreement of sorts with Nigel Farage and or anyone else senior in reform, and no longer part of the party. But I know you did advise the party at some point on how they would deal with the small boats crisis. What do you make of what Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef have announced today in terms of what they want to do to tackle the small boats, which is basically being picked up by Royal Navy vessels in the middle of the Channel and then taken back to France, and if the French will agree, delivering them to ports. If they don't agree, delivering them back to the beaches. What do you make of this policy?
Well, Julia, could I start by saying that they never listened to my advice. They never even asked it. So I can come from a clean slate here. The plan is good in part. It's like a curate's egg. It states the problem really well. What's really odd, a year ago, you'd have been suspended from the party for calling it an invasion, but invasion is all over this document.
They use that word. It is an invasion of young men.
Absolutely. Yeah. And after Ceuta, I think probably that's why that emotive language is used. It states the problem really well. It actually comes up with a solution. However, you've got a number of problems, operational and legal, associated with which have been well aired. If you intercept one of these boats at sea, you're going to have 190 people in the water straight away because they'll just jump
people are going to jump in the water. I remember talking to you quite some years ago to Ben Habib about this. He said, "Well, you get them if they want to jump in the water, then that's up to them."
The other thing is, let's
stick literally. Just go through. So you stop the boat. Well, I suppose first question. I mean, Claire Pearsall's raises: do we actually have the vessels to? I suppose we already have the vessels. We know we're seizing these people. It's a question of where they go afterwards. But if these people think they're being taken to France, you think they will all just jump in the water?
Yeah.
A lot of these people can't swim. Some of these people don't even have a life jacket.
Some of them don't even know what the sea is. So that's the nature of the people.
What about, as one of our callers suggested earlier, you just turn the figure, they won't even know which way they're going. So no, but it's a fair point.
The real problem is that the French are really neuralgic to people in uniform invading their country, and so if we take Royal Marines and members of the Royal Navy and go to France, they're going to get pretty upset because we've got 900 years of dealing with the French at sea and they don't like it very much. And so until Jordan Bardella gets in, you're not going to have any sort of agreement.
But again, he's from the Marine Le Pen's party and is running for presidency. Here's the thing, though. It is actually in the interest of the French for these people to be returned. Huge numbers of people travelled through France to go to Calais, camp there, causing massive disruption for people living locally and mess and criminality to get to Britain. If they knew they could stay in Britain, the deal, the streets paved with gold were no longer, they wouldn't travel perhaps through France. That might actually help France. However, politically in France, no one is going to say, yeah, we'll take all these people back. Correct. We've just got rid of.
Absolutely, and they don't want us returning stuff against their will.
Here's the thing. I don't really care what Macron or anyone, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry, as a Brexiteer, French political elite have done nothing but try to economically and politically harm us
and
sabotage since 2016. I think one of the reasons why they don't tackle the boats, which they could, is because we get rid of these people. So we can have nice relations with France, but we've supposedly had nice relations with France all these years, and they've done nothing but harm us. So what would they do? I mean, they're not going to open fire on a Royal Navy frigate or a landing vehicle or whatever. These vehicles are. They're not going to open fire on including there'd be civilians on the boats, so that would be an illegal act.
What they'll do is mobilise their fishing boats, and they'll get in the way. And there'll be all sorts of civil protests. I mean, I've been in the Channel myself in a warship when we've been confronted by half a dozen French fishing vessels when we've tried to arrest an offending vessel. So there's all sorts of issues here that haven't been worked out. Unless you actually have a joint command on both sides of the Channel, that's the key point.
And agree to it.
But
they're not going to.
Well, they may or may not.
Well, hold on a minute. How many different prime ministers have got into office and gone, Let's just have a chat with Macron and we can just sort it out like gents or like ladies.
It depends on the incentives and penalties. I mean, you hit them somewhere else.
We've given them over £1 billion.
You and I haven't, our politicians have.
No, it's our money.
But the thing is, I mean, I was saying jokingly this morning, we should get a rebate for everybody who enters the channel from the money we've paid the French.
Well, it turns out the number that actually stopped, according to stats on the front page of the Sun today, we're basically paying £8,000 to the French for every migrant they stop. And they are stopping more people, but they're not stopping enough.
Well, they're not really interested in it. Julia, there's only one way to do this. It's not a job for the Navy. Give it to a contractor. You flag a big ferry or a big liner, you put it in international waters, you put a Rwandan or a Liberian flag on the back of it, you use civilian contractors, and you take these people for processing to this international centre in international waters.
And you mean the boat?
Well, a very large ship.
Yeah.
You know, the reform paper says use the Navy. Disagree entirely. The Navy's got more important things to do. It shouldn't be actually picking up people from the water, intersecting them. Give it to me as a contractor. I'll do it.
I'll come and help. Yeah. I've got Saturdays free.
I've got lots of volunteers. Saturday, good, because that's double time.
I'm loving your work.
But I would hire 2 big international liners that aren't working at the moment. I've said this for 10 years that this is what we need to do. Put it in international waters, flag it. Not British, because the minute these people step aboard a British warship, they're on British sovereign territory.
Okay.
There's another thing, Julia.
Okay, no. So at that point, and then what? And then they're processed. But then, if we can't send them back to Afghanistan or Syria or wherever it is, we're stuck with them.
They go to the flag country. So if it's Rwanda or Liberia, take them there. See how they like that. I'm afraid to say
once word gets out, I mean, this is the thing. The key thing is when people say, "Well, you can't take thousands of people." That's not the point. You never plan to do that. It's like what happened with Australia all those years ago under Tony Abbott. It was decided
different context
by Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef, which is but taking basically you ain't going to stay on Australian shore.
You're not going to
reach it. You're not going to ever come here. Full stop, never can happen. And the boat stopped within weeks.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, having been in search and rescue as well, your only obligation to somebody who is in distress is to take them to a place of safety. So what I would do is intercept them the French side of the median line, and the nearest place of safety is France.
Talk us through where you can go, because people are saying, Claire and I have been having a disagreement of this. You can't just take a Royal Navy vessel into French naval waters.
If they're in distress.
They can?
Yes.
So it is legal?
I have flown helicopters into French territorial seas.
But you just do that for fun.
People.
That's just your Friday afternoon thing.
No, that's flying under bridges. But rescuing people when they're in distress or in a humanitarian situation...
by definition, someone in a dinghy, even these big, epic, double-decker bus-length dinghies.
And, one of our ships can go on what we call innocent passage, go straight past them. They all say, we're in distress, can't cope. And we turn up and say, fine, you're in distress, we're taking you to the nearest place of safety. By the way, that's San Malo.
So we deliberately, on the French coast, make sure our vessels are to intercept before the 12-mile mark.
Well, you detect everything and then you plan whatever.
You and I have talked before about this. It's just this when they were saying, we can't find all the boats before they take off. But of course, drone technology.
You can.
Even at night, the infrared cameras. I mean, for goodness sake, we could detect all of these.
Julia, I could procure us a drone tomorrow, almost off Amazon, that will not only detect by radar, infrared, and also will intercept the telephone calls being made by the traffickers. You can buy it commercially.
OK, silly question. Why is it not being done then?
Well, I'd like to ask that question too.
What did you make of Andy Burnham turning up yesterday? Of course, we've seen what happened with Ceuta, with all those 60,000 people, not all of whom have returned to Morocco. And Andy Burnham turning up, suit and tie, I know, very exciting, so exciting for everybody, pledging to be relentless in curbing small boat crossings. But he says he is changing the whole approach. Again, this is something he said about virtually every topic. He's going to be relentless and he's going to change the approach. He's going to do it differently. It's all going to work.
Well, let's see the actions. When he does all that, then let's see it. I'm a great believer in outcomes, Julia, not processes. I'm not hearing any outcomes.
Or pledges.
No, pledges, all that sort of thing. I think we're all pretty tired of this. We want people to take action.
OK. Volunteers for Dr Chris Parry's little trip out to
Hampshire Riviera.
So happy to help with that.
Good.
That would Claire Pearsall, you're up for that?
Oh yeah, I'm in.
Good.
Right, we're all in. Everyone in the conference. Yeah, they're all nodding. Everyone's up for it.
I'm
We've
an
got a load of
equal
volunteers.
opportunities employer, so that's great.
There we are. 12:47 this time. Honestly, great to have you in. Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, CP, former Royal Navy Commander. Appreciate that. Let's go to a quick break. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show, 12:49. Mark Donan's going to be in a few moments. I'm standing for Ian Collins, he's standing in for Jeremy Carr. Oh, but you don't have a go at them lot for having holidays, do you? Just me. I noticed that, folks. Claire Pearsall, not on a holiday, she's still with me, I'd like to say, in the studio. Just before we go to our next guest, very much enjoyed Chris Parry's former... he knows his stuff. I mean, he's commanded vessels. I mean, you know, he knows what he's talking about, how we handle these boats. It's just, we don't need to use the Royal Navy. We just get a private contractor, say one Chris Parry, for instance, and we just... You and I are happy to volunteer. I don't even need to be paid. I'd happily do it for free. We just basically go, you know, intercept the dinghies, and you just, you know, on an international boat, and then you, international flag, off you go.
And I think that was the thing, wasn't it? Pointing out that it's international flag, not the British flag, so therefore they're not on sovereign territory when they enter the boat. So you see, people like him need to be listened to.
Absolutely. I'm up for it. I dread to think how many volunteers we'd have by the end of the show, even in the next 10 minutes or so. Delighted to say we're going to talk about something else right now, and I could say, delighted to say also that my guest on it is someone who joined us through lots of the World Cup, Max Scott, talkSport reporter. Great to have you back in the studio.
Great to be back.
Thanks for joining us. I'm a bit worried your mic is dipping down. Are we okay for the sound there? It's just underneath. There you go. That's a bit better. It's just underneath your...
Right.
Yeah. Is that working? Hopefully that is working. Let's talk about... I mean... We had enough to talk about during the World Cup, but no doubt the FIFA boss, Gianni Infantino, he's been the talk of the country and the world after his plan to basically sell off a whole load of the FIFA World Cup to private bidders for huge sums of money. But lots of countries and lots of beautiful sporting organisations, including UEFA for Europe, opposed to that. And now we've got Wales and England, rather more significantly, with all due respect to my Welsh audience, saying that they basically will not support Infantino when he runs for office again next year. So talk us through what's been going on.
Well, I think there's a tidal wave of disapproval for Gianni Infantino from nations, FIFA nations who have previously supported him. Wales went first last night. The FA looks like today are going to be releasing a formal letter declaring that they no longer support Gianni Infantino, who wants to stand again for a third term in 2027. He's currently unopposed in that. But this sort of absolutely wretched bid to privatise the World Cup and sell off a portion of it to private investors has been rightly received with absolute disgrace from the football community.
But it was big sport, and of course it's going. It will partly going to be, you know, bought up by someone. You know, the brother, wasn't it? The brother of Jared Kushner, his son, Donald Trump's son-in-law, which explains an awful lot about the love-in between Infantino and Donald Trump over the last year or so, ahead of the US, Canada, and Mexico World Cup. But here's the thing. Suddenly everyone's going, oh, we don't like Gianni Infantino. I mean, he got involved in basically overturning a red card during the World Cup. We know that he was elected ostensibly to try and tackle mass levels of, mass corruption in FIFA in terms of who gets the World Cup. You know, highest bidder, Russia and Qatar getting it. Come on, he had. You know, I don't want to be libeling anybody, but there have been certainly some question marks. And there's a fundamental flaw with FIFA, which is that some tiny island state who could be horribly influenced by, I just say, a few freebies here and there, has the same vote in anything that happens in the World Cup as major sporting nations who are who produce, the winners, or semi-finalists or quarter-finalists like us, and a major players. Literally in the World Cup, FIFA isn't it that FIFA's the problem rather than Gianni Infantino?
I think both can be true at once. I don't think it's either or. The reality is FIFA's one of the or the least transparent organisations you'll find in sport, but. You know, it's no surprise that Gianni Infantino, it's been reported by talkSport's Ben Jacobs literally in the last hour that he is having a call with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio to try to seek some sort of American political backing to perhaps, to keep him in the job. And I mean, this speaks of the rank kind of incestuous relationship that Gianni Infantino has developed with the American political elite. But
also how we're constantly told we need to keep politics out of football, apart from the fact they constantly put politics into football, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's Rainbow this, Rainbow that, but also allowing, the outrageous flag being held up by the Argentinian team after they beat us, saying the Falklands, in Spanish obviously, but the Falklands are Argentinian. But so they do, they pick and choose, don't they? But, I mean, realistically, is there going to be an alternative? Because although a lot of people will speak out, when you have the presidency of FIFA, you have an immense amount of power in terms of, again, the gifts, the deals you can do. One of the reasons why a lot of countries were supporting this plan was because a lot of us feel like, hasn't it already been a sellout anyway? Was it actually, huge, billions coming into the game and being shared out with some of these states? Some of these, these sporting bodies in small states in Africa, South America, Caribbean or wherever, these are huge sums of money and they're often going to individuals ultimately, backhanders and the like. We know that. They know that's what's happened. There's been huge investigations into these things over the years that, they're still big fans of Infantino because things like having more players, more teams playing in the World Cup, even more next time round, gives them a lot more money.
Yeah, look, ultimately there are 211 FIFA states, and in order to depose Gianni Infantino, there needs to be 106 FIFA nations who issue a vote of no confidence.
We've got 55 with UEFA alone.
Yeah, there are 35 in sort of CONCACAF, which is the North America, Central American Football Federation. The issue is that the African Football Association essentially are back Gianni Infantino. And so we're essentially in a game of maths now, very simple game of addition, about whether or not UEFA and CONCACAF can curry favour from other smaller nations who, yes, may benefit from having more teams in the World Cup, who may benefit from the privatisation of FIFA. Those plans have thankfully been shelved.
That's definitely off the cards.
That is off the cards, but it would seem to me that it's a matter of when, not if, with Gianni Infantino.
Just finally, I know you've got a broadcast to do on talkSport. Is there any name in the fold, in the frame, who could take over?
Yeah, the head of CONCACAF, Montagliani, who is an insurance broker, sort of by trade, but he's in charge of the CONCACAF. And there's also speak that the Nasser Al-Khelaifi, who's the PSG owner, that if there was a road for him to become FIFA president, then he would put his hat in the ring.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Max Scott, talkSport reporter. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. You've got a dash out of the studio, under the cameras, I hope. Claire Pearsall. I mean, again, it's fascinating. The politics of the World Cup. I mean, it just always dominates. It's about politics and money. And then occasionally there's a football match.
Well, exactly, and I think that most people just want to watch the football match. They don't want to get tangled up in this, but unfortunately when FIFA are involved, it's it's inevitable that it comes back down to politics.
And it always does, doesn't it?
I mean, they've had people in charge of FIFA who have been less than adequate at the job, let's say.
Yeah. But we should have, I mean, the European team should have walked away a long time ago.
But again, it's money, isn't it? And they don't want to lose any of the revenue that would come their way. They don't want to lose out of favour because they'll know that they won't get the treatment that they believe that they require.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, again, I mean, it is extraordinary. It's such big business. It's just such a, you know, and there's so much money swirling around. I have to say, I was thinking, like, isn't it already all privatised? It seems to me FIFA are a law unto themselves.
I think pretty much everything else is, but in all intents and purposes, FIFA isn't.
I'll do anything for us not to have the half-time show.
I mean, the hydration break and a half-time show need to leave our lives. That's
Although, when you're a woman of a certain age, the hydration break turns out quite useful. Just saying. Just saying. But anyway, 12:57 is time. Delighted to say, I never get to see him otherwise, unless everyone's all shifting around during holidays. Mark Dolan's here. Afternoon, love.
So good to see you. I quite enjoyed the halftime show. Nice to see Madonna still going.
I mean, literally, opinion of one person in the world.
Too right. Listen, what I've done,
sarcasm?
I'm actually quite busy today because normally, like your good self, I spend a lot of time preparing the show, but I've just been on Expedia booking a hotel room for Rupert and Nigel.
I mean, seriously, this whole, as I was saying earlier, they're like 13-year-old girls. It's completely. So what David, I mean, it really is. He said so. Anyway, so I said to Jane, and Jane said to Jane. So she said. So Tabitha said. So Natasha said. I mean, it's genuinely embarrassing.
Definitely, and it's a case of can't live with him, can't live without him. I think Nigel's looking at those polls and he's thinking that Restore is not helpful. He said a lot in that post on X, Nigel Farage, without saying too much at all. But I think
without saying not an option. But I think if you want to have a deal with the Tories, and again, there won't be a deal before the election, but there could well be a pact afterwards. By the way, there's a choice between Green, Labour, and Lib Dem. Hello, but can you do a deal with the Tories at the same time as doing a deal with Restore?
I think you potentially can, because I think Kemi has shifted the party to the right. ECHR, net zero, cuts to the welfare budget. They're sounding
do you think that's a doable
pretty
thing?
right-wing.
No, I don't, because the Conservative Party is the Conservative Party.